regularly scheduled meeting for the Village of Tinley Park Plan Commission to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Lori, if you can take a roll call, please.
Commissioner Gaskell.
Present.
Commissioner Gatto. Commissioner Hamilton.
Here.
Commissioner Manning. Commissioner Merrick.
Here.
Commissioner Martinez. Commissioner Sepisi.
Present.
Commissioner Stoklos.
Here.
Chairman Gray.
Present. Okay, we do have a quorum. We'll move on to communications. Staff, are there any communications tonight?
No.
Okay. Move on to the approval of the meeting minutes. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the November 7th, 2024 regularly scheduled Plan Commission meeting?
Motion. Second.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Gaskell, seconded by Commissioner Sepisi. All those in favor of approving the November 7th, 2024 minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion is carried. The minutes are approved. We'll move on to item 1 on tonight's agenda. Item 1 is a public hearing to consider recommending that the village board grant Joseph Bermudez of 7 Multi-Site Solutions on the behalf of Jack in the Box a variation from section 8.10 of the zoning ordinance for a parking reduction to allow for the redevelopment of a fast food restaurant at 9550 179th Street in the B3 General Business and Commercial Zoning District. Site plan and architectural approval will also be considered. At this time, may I have a motion to open the public hearing?
Motion. Second.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Sepisi, seconded by Commissioner Gaskell. All those in favor of opening the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion is carried. We are officially open for the public hearing. I have received certification of the public hearing notice being published in the local newspaper. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter will be sworn in before they speak, but after staff's presentation. So staff, please proceed with your presentation at this time.
All right. So like you stated, this is for a Jack in the Box fast food restaurant to come in along 179th Street and LaGrange Road. It's a little under 3/4 of an acre. It was a former Arby's restaurant, which also had a drive-through. It's in the crossings of Tinley Park Shopping Center. It's not a PUD, that's just like a development name for the area. So it's actually its own lot, zoned in the B3 business district. It is surrounded by, obviously LaGrange is a main arterial on the west side of town, with a collector of 179th to the south. It's near the Loyola Medical Clinic. And then Orland Grassland on the west side of the property. So there are 2 items that they're making a request for, is just a variation to reduce on-site parking and to approve site plan review. And I'll kind of go into those details here. So I put up on the screen the proposed site plan review, or site plan. The original Arby's, you can see on the southern edge where the queue line wraps around, that was all parking for the Arby's. So Arby's only had about 3 queue spots before they would start backing up. There's on the south edge there is a right-in, right-out off 179th. And it used to be a 2-lane access on that southern portion. Jack in the Box is I mean, most fast food restaurants and Jack in the Box in general is expecting more drive-through traffic than they are people coming in and sitting down. So they've realigned the site plan to allow for 12 drive-through queue spaces. So it's really then they've actually curved it. They made it a one-way to get out of there, so you're gonna have to circulate around. You're not gonna be able to come in off 179th and back it up and cause backups or anything else on neighboring properties. Because even if it does go back, you still have 2 or 3 more spaces before you even get off the property line. So overall, they did end up losing 8 spaces for this. We also calculate how many parking spaces they need by tables and chairs. It's a older part of our code, but that is how we calculate it. So they are asking a variation to go down to 22 spaces as opposed to 31 that are required. I would like to mention too, there is shared parking to the north, because there's a shopping center to the north that has additional parking as well. So not really that concerned about the parking going through. We're happy with their ability to kind of solve any issues that would come with traffic backing up or things like that for the drive-through. They're also going to reconstruct the garbage enclosure in the southeast corner and kind of angle it so then the trucks can come in, back up, and then leave right away, so they won't have to back up into any of the parking spots. So that's a variation request. Architecture and site plan. So the architecture, we figured we'd just show you. They're not really changing the building that much. They're actually keeping all the existing masonry on the brick or on the every facade. They are going to, on the front elevation, kind of, Arby's has that little peak. They're going to get rid of that for their Jack in the Box logo. They're kind of changing the colors to their purple and red branding. And the top is already stucco, so that's just going to be kept and painted. They are replacing the lights with new lights that are going to conform to our code. Right now, they have little buttons that kind of point outward. So those are getting updated as well. Landscaping, they are primarily keeping all the landscaping by the trash enclosure. They are going to add a little bit. They are going to have to get rid of a tree. So to do so, they are going to be adding some extra shrubs kind of by it as well to help with that landscaping. But overall, they didn't really want any landscaping changes. There's already landscaped out there. They are, the masonry sign is at the southwest corner. I believe they're going to keep it in that spot, and they're going to landscape around that as well, which is also required by code. So all of that is going to meet code when it comes to that. And they also, in their new landscaped area to the northeast, are adding some shrubs and bushes there as well. So overall, that's it. It's just a variation for the parking to increase the amount of queuing they can have for their drive-through, which is consistent with more up-to-date ways to operate these places. And then the site plan is for you guys as Planning Commission to review.
Okay. Thank you, Jason. Does the applicant have anything to add? Is the applicant here?
Hi, everyone.
I
Joe
have to
Berm.
swear you in.
Oh, yeah,
before
go
you
for it.
speak. So state your name, and then do you swear or affirm that the evidence that you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please proceed. And what is
Yeah.
your name, sir?
My name is Joe Bermudez. I am the applicant for this project. Not much to add. Thank you for presenting. I think you hit our points pretty clearly in relation to what we're proposing here. We're just really excited to be a part of the community and move in and also modernize a site that has been sitting pretty stagnant for quite some time. So I'm just here mainly to address any questions that you might have related to the project, and just look forward to hopefully getting a recommendation for approval today.
Okay, Mr. Bermudez, we will go around asking comments from the commissioners, and if need be, you could answer the questions. Commissioner Stockley.
No questions.
Commissioner Sepisi.
No, nothing at all, thank you.
Commissioner Gaskell.
I have no questions.
Commissioner Merrick.
So I don't have any questions. I do want to go on the record as I'm in favor of changing the zoning on the parking. Everyone knows that, right? And then the other comment I want to make, which I don't think is necessarily directly pertinent to this, but I'd love to see that trail extended along LaGrange. I know I read in the plan to talk about how it's not a pedestrian-friendly space. I run across up to get into the grasslands on a regular basis, and starting in Orland Hills, there's a path, right, a biking and running path along LaGrange that starts there, but none in Tinley, so that's it.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Hamilton.
Just curious, how long has the property been vacant?
I believe Arby's closed in May of this year, so we're going on to about 6 months now. Project's also going through plan review for the necessary permits to perform construction. And Jack in the Box is looking forward to commencing construction as soon as possible.
Good, thank you.
Yes.
Okay. I'm glad that it's getting reinvigorated, relatively quicker than later. And another thing too is I'm glad that the building has not really changed anything in terms of where it's at. And I think the stacking is more important than parking. There's a lot of people on the go. And as staff mentioned, there's also available parking outside of the property itself. So I have no other comments. So is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on this? Okay. Mr. Bermudez, you can sit down. Please approach, sir. And the same thing, I got to swear you in, so, and then I'll have you state your name. Do you swear or affirm that the evidence you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and what is your name, sir?
My name is Thomas Clemenzos.
Okay,
I am one of the owners from Crossroads Plaza that's adjacent to it. And I just heard you about saying there's available parking that's going to be next to it, which we own and maintain. And I'm just curious about, is that what you're counting on, overflow parking to go into our lot?
No, so overall, let me pull it up here. So overall, you're required by the zoning code to have enough parking to handle your
Right.
your use, right? So with the parking they've shown, we have a very old code that goes over parking standards for, too many cars a lot of the times. So by Jack in the Box's calculations and ours, these spaces will be enough. It did say there was an existing shared parking agreement between the two. We haven't dug it up. I'm not sure if Jack in the Box can speak to it, but
That's
We have a
usually-
shared
That's
easement.
usually only there just so like, hey, cars can park and nobody's gonna tow anybody's, but it's not saying, hey, you get to use somebody else's.
Right, but there's no way of telling, like, how much in the future, like Arby's didn't have anything come over to us. But as Jack in the Box is there, if they get busier, and it does start to become their parking lot, do we have a say-so after that?
yeah,
So we can come back and
correct.
change that? or whatever?
Everybody must maintain parking on their own property.
Right.
So if they were not able to do that, we would have to come back and,
And they would be in violation of our code. too.
Okay.
So like, if there is an issue like that, you could always contact us.
Okay, that's all I had.
We can't issue
Okay.
citations. We don't like going that route. but
Okay.
we'll
Thank you.
we can work
all right,
with
thank you,
that.
Thomas. Okay, anybody else wishing to speak? Okay. Does any of the commissioners have any other comments? All right, seeing none. Could I get a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second?
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Stockley, seconded by Commissioner Sepisi. All those in favor of closing the public hearing say aye. Opposed? Okay, the motion is carried, the public hearing is closed. Staff, if you want to present standards?
yep, I'll just summarize it real quick. So the standards are above. It's the redevelopment of a constrained site that's already been located as a commercial restaurant. So it's not changing the character of the area. It's hopefully bringing new business and a little more vitality to the area. Just overall, the variations, as we said time and again, the parking standards are a little harsh. So it's really outside of their control for a business operating nowadays.
Okay. Okay, with that, we'll move on to the motions, beginning with the first one. May I have a motion, number one, regarding the variation?
I'll make a motion to grant the petitioner a variation from section VIII.10. Or right here. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm using the
Oh,
wrong one?
sorry, you're right.
Yep.
My bad.
Of the zoning ordinance to reduce the number of required on-site parking spaces from 31 to 22 to redevelop a fast food restaurant at 9550 179th Street in accordance with the plans submitted and adopt the findings of fact as proposed in the December 5, 2024 staff report.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Hamilton, seconded by Commissioner Sepisi. Lori, can I have a roll call?
Commissioner Gasco,
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton,
Yes.
Commissioner Merrick,
Yes.
Commissioner Sepisi,
Yes.
Commissioner Stoklos,
Yes.
Chairman Gray.
Yes. Okay, motion number 1 is carried. Now, may I have a second motion regarding the site plan?
Okay, I'd like to forward a motion, please. Make a motion to grant the petitioner's site plan architectural approval for the redevelopment of a fast food restaurant at 9550 179th Street in accordance with the plans submitted and adopt the findings of fact as proposed in the November 21st, 2024 staff report.
It's December 5th.
Yeah, so
Sorry.
December 5th, it's wrong on the screen, it's right on the report.
Amending December 5th, 2024 staff report.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Sepisi, seconded by Commissioner Stocklus. Lori, may I have a roll call?
Commissioner Gasco,
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton,
Yes.
Commissioner Merrick,
Yes.
Commissioner Sepisi,
Yes.
Commissioner Stoklos,
Yes.
Chairman Gray.
Yes. Okay, motion number 2 is also carried. So this will go to the village board on December 17th, 2024. So Mr. Bermudez, please get with staff on what you need to be present for the village board meeting. And good luck, sir. Okay, we will move on to item 2 on tonight's agenda. Item 2 is a public meeting to consider recommending that the village board grant West Point at Harmony Square LLC a final plat of re-subdivision to re-subdivide a lot at 17201 South 66th Court into 17 separate lots within the DG Downtown General Zoning District. May have a, well, do we need a motion? It's a public meeting, so, yeah. So with that said, staff, if you want to give your presentation.
Sure. All right, so this is a project you're probably pretty familiar with. It's the townhomes downtown in Harmony, north of Harmony Square. The 3 acres for the townhomes by West Point Builders. Zoning history, it's in the Legacy District, in the DG. We did, 1 year ago, we did all the rezonings and all the approvals for this. This is just, they needed to modify the final plat, so they never recorded the first one, so that's really all they're requesting today. This is just an update. The townhomes are gonna stay exactly where they are. They're gonna look exactly as they were approved. The whole concept of the plan is still moving forward as is, so there is really no change planning-wise or site plan-wise to anything that's being already approved. So overall, this is just final plat review, which is why it's not a public hearing, it's just a recommendation by Planning Commission to Village Board. Mostly, what changes is the original subdivision, it was all gonna be one singular thing, and then they were gonna separate everything out, and it had Lot 2, which is the multi-use to the south. Now they're just doing that first, they just need a plat showing just the northern section. So that's gonna be the 16 lots for the townhomes, and then there will be 1 lot for all common areas north of the multi-use building. Really, just substantially, nothing else has really changed, so.
And they'll have to come back for Lot 2 as that comes up.
When that
So-
gets developed,
So
yes.
that's still the plan to do that, but they kind of need to break them apart because they're going to have different ownerships for the time being. So.
Makes sense, okay. I'll ask my commissioners for any comments. We'll start with Commissioner Hamilton.
No comments.
Commissioner Merrick?
So for further understanding, this is so they can underwrite their loans, the financing for this, or?
I'm pretty
I'll defer.
I'll defer Pat Kearns
He's
here.
shaking his head yes, so,
Yeah.
yeah, because the village is going to maintain everything still that's owned by Lot 2, so this just
Okay.
makes that process simpler.
Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Gaskell?
No comments.
Commissioner Sepisi?
No, we're good.
Commissioner Stocklus?
I'm good.
Okay. I have no comments myself. Does anybody from the public wishing to speak on this matter? Okay. With that said, could I get a motion regarding the final plat?
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of the townhomes of Harmony Square re-subdivision final plat dated December 5, 2024?
No, it's November 8th.
It's November
It's the
8th,
date
sorry.
on the plat.
Okay, sorry. Now I'm correcting things that
Sorry.
don't need to be corrected. It's okay. November 8, 2024, to the petitioner, Pat Curran, on behalf of West Point at Harmony Square LLC, subject to condition that is subject to the final review and approval by the village engineer and village attorney.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I heard motion made by Commissioner Merrick, seconded by Commissioner Hamilton. Lori, could I get a roll call?
Commissioner Gaskell.
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Yes.
Commissioner Merrick.
Yes.
Commissioner Sepisi.
Yes.
Commissioner Stokos.
Yes.
Chairman Gray.
Yes. Okay, the motion is carried. With that said, this will be discussed at the village board meeting, December 17th, 2024. And we will move on to item number 3 on tonight's agenda. Item number 3 is a public hearing to consider recommending that the village board grant Connor Coleman, on behalf of Action Behavior Center, a special use for a special needs therapy institution at 8151 183rd Street, Suite A, in the M1 PD General Manufacturing Tinley Crossings PUD zoning district. May I have a motion to open the public hearing?
Motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Sepisi, seconded by Commissioner Stocklus. All those in favor of opening the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion is carried. The public hearing is open. I have received certification that the public hearing, a notice was published in a local newspaper. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter will be sworn in, but after the staff's presentation. So staff, please proceed.
Thank you, Chair. So the subject property is at 8151 183rd Street. So you can see it up on the screen, notated by the star. This is a roughly 50,000 square foot building, and our subject property is a portion of roughly 10,000 square feet within that building. The property is part of the Tinley Crossings Corporate Center planned unit development with the underlying M1 general manufacturing zoning. Earlier this year, this building, as well as 3 others within this planned unit development, received an amendment, what we call special use substantial deviation, that made some varied allowances as far as types of uses that could go into those 4 buildings. We would refer to them as transitional flex type of uses. So one of them was to allow special uses for certain types of uses that aren't otherwise defined in our code. One of which is for special needs therapy institutions. And again, that is specific to a few of the buildings within that PUD. The special use permit as standard for our village requires that it is only for the proposed owner and to that location. So change of ownership or change of location will require a new special use permit approval. So the nature of the use, the petitioner is Action Behavior Centers, and they are a nationwide ABA, it's Applied Behavioral Analysis Therapy facility, and they have, within the Chicagoland region, currently 27 locations. So they are looking to expand and open a location here in Tinley Park. ABA therapy can be for a variety of ages. In this case, they specialize in therapy for children, most of which are autistic, that are referred by their pediatrician. This location has specific amenities. They have various types of amenities throughout the facilities. They service, for this location, they propose to service children ages 2 to 7 years old, and on-site, a maximum of 28 of them. As far as the child-to-therapist ratio, it is 1-on-1, so each child has a licensed therapist that they work with. So in addition to the number of therapists there and other administrative staff and other types of uses they may have that are accessory regarding training, that would be a maximum of 49 people on site. So they do not have medical staff for medical equipment there. As I mentioned, some of them are administrative, most are the therapists. 11 of those 49 are part of the training portion. That's the accessory use. So they will have every other week employee staff training. And as far as training for parents, they also offer that. So parents of each child, they would do one parent training at a time on their site. That would be once a month for 30 minutes. So as far as other types of specifics to the site, some other facilities have outdoor play areas. They do not propose that in this case, so everything is inside. Meals are not serviced or prepared. A child can be there, depending on their needs, anywhere from 2 to 8 hours. If they're going to be there the full day, they're expected to bring their own lunch. And as far as the hours, so this is a Monday through Friday type of facility. Children are there 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. That training portion is a little longer until 5 o'clock. And then for administrative purposes and parent tours, a little bit beyond that, 7:45 to 6 p.m. So you can see a floor plan on the right. And just as a note, for the purpose of ABA therapy, they use their scientifically validated methods to help improve life skills and communication. As far as what they're planning to do with the site, they've submitted for sign permits that meet code, so that's exterior wall signage, and they will be providing signage on the parking spaces. No other site changes are proposed. Lastly, to talk about the parking, the building itself has a total of 144 parking spaces. They've worked with the landlord and have agreed with the landlord that they would have 49 allocated out of those 144. 4 of those 49 are the ones that will have some signage at the parking space to indicate drop-offs. So parents are intended to use those. As far as drop-offs and pickups, those are arranged, and following the staff report, I did confirm with the petitioner that these will be in staggered 10-minute windows and that there will be no van drop-offs. So as far as a condition, staff proposes that a property owner and/or business owner has the responsibility to maintain the parking on site. That concludes staff presentation. I have a petitioner, a representative for the petitioner. She's with Action Behavior Centers and is not here.
Okay, yes, please approach the lectern. I'll swear you in and get your name. So do you swear that you affirm that the evidence you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please proceed, and what is your name, miss?
Ines Kropf.
Ines.
I'm with Action Behavior Centers, and I'm very excited to have this opportunity to be a part of the Tinley Park community, and am here to answer any questions that you have.
Okay, thank you, Inez. With that, I will go around and ask our commissioners if they have any comments. We will begin with Commissioner Merrick.
I'm just glad to see that the zoning changes is resulting in folks moving in. No question, no, nothing further.
Commissioner Hamilton.
No questions.
Okay. Commissioner Stocklus.
No questions.
Commissioner Sepisi.
No questions, we're just glad to see they're coming to town.
Commissioner Gaskell.
No comments or questions.
Okay. My only comment is I too echo what Commissioner Merrick said. It is good to have, those changes lead to positive tenants like coming in, a positive flow of tenants. And I concur with staff about like if there's an issue with the parking, it would have to be revisited. It does seem, you have the one-on-one special care, of course, and 49 parking spots is quite a bit. But as long as you're able to manage that, it looks like a good fit.
Thank you.
Is there any else? Any other people from the public wishing to speak on this item? If not, you could have a seat.
Thank you, and thank you, Lori. That was a very nice presentation. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
No more comments from the commissioners. At this time, I will ask for a motion to be made to close the public hearing.
Motion.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Gaskell. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Stocklus. All those in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion is carried. The public hearing is closed. Staff, if you can go through the standards.
Okay, I have the standards for special use up on screen. So there are the first three up here that you can see. The first is regarding public health, safety, general welfare. So as applied behavioral analysis, this use will not be detrimental to such and provides a service which supports public health and well-being. Secondly, regarding this use to not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity, nor substantially diminish and impair property values. This special use will occur indoors within weekday hours specified and will not be injurious to such. And it is expected to maintain property values in the neighborhood. Thirdly, that the establishment of the special use will not impede the normal and orderly development. The building is existing. Apart from signage, there are no proposed changes to the exterior. The proposed use will enhance the development by filling a vacancy and not be a disruption to surrounding properties in the PUD. And then next standard, adequate utilities, roads, drainage, other necessary facilities. Building is already existing with such. Next, adequate measures have been taken to provide ingress and egress. So this is already existing and developed, so it is designed to minimize traffic congestion. Next, the petitioner, that long standard up there, petitioner has indicated they will meet all other village regulations. And lastly, regarding economic development, this use will contribute to the community as a whole and will fill a vacancy and provide a service by helping children on the autism spectrum reach their fullest potential within the community. I have a motion up on screen.
Okay, thank you, Lori. Now at this time, I have a motion regarding the special use.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to recommend that the village board grant a special use permit to the petitioner, Connor Coleman, on behalf of Action Behavior Center, a special use permit to operate a special needs therapy institution for children, ABA therapy at 8151 183rd Street, Suite A, in the M1 PD General Manufacturing Tinley Crossings PUD zoning district, according to the submitted plans, and adopt the findings of fact as limited in the December 5th, 2024 staff report with the following condition. Condition 1, the property owner and/or business owner must manage parking, drop-offs, pickups, and visitation on site to avoid any stacking issues or blockage of roadways.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Sepsi, seconded by Commissioner Gaskell. Lori, may I have a roll call?
Commissioner Gaskell.
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Yes.
Commissioner Merrick.
Yes.
Commissioner Sepisi.
Yes.
Commissioner Stoklos.
Yes.
Chairman Gray.
Yes. Okay, the motion is carried. So this item will go to the village board December 17th, 2024. So Inez, good luck, and get with staff on how to attend. Thank you. Okay, and before we move on to item number 4, I do have to recuse myself from this item. I do have a relative who is involved with the current property transaction, so I will step down and give it to Commissioner Sepisi to fill in as the acting chair. Thank you.
Don't want to confuse anyone.
We want to make sure we all know who we are, right? Good evening, everyone. I'm the dreaded fill-in, and this public hearing, and we do have notifications made to the proper media authorities. That's okay, I think I've got one. All right, this public hearing is about Interstate Sports Dome at 7600 West 191st Street. This is a special use to establish a planned unit development rezoning, final plat site plan, and architectural approval. We want to consider recommending that the village board grant Roberto D. Gutierrez, GC Development Properties, LLC, a special use for final approval of a planned unit development, PUD, and rezoning from ORI, which is Office and Restricted Industrial Zoning, district into B3 General Business and Commercial Zoning District for 48 acres of property located at 7600 West 191st Street. Final plat, site, and architectural approval will also be considered. So, having said that, we need to have a motion, please, to open the public hearing.
Motion.
Motion by Motion by Commissioner Gaskell, second by Commissioner Stockley. All those in favor signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay, so the hearing is open, and we're gonna start off with a staff report. You guys have it?
Okay. Thank you, Acting Chair. So the property is located on 191st Street, a little bit east of 80th Avenue. That would be between Panduit Drive and the old 76th Avenue on the north side. So you can see it's sort of a flag-shaped property fronting 191st Street. It's 48 acres in total, and it actually, I said it is flag-shaped, but it does exclude a little notch that you see directly on 191st. So that property is not included in part of this proposal. This property that we are talking about, though, was previously the Greystone Golf Course. It was annexed back in 1992, and it ran as the golf course for many years. Currently, the property is vacant, and there is a pipeline that runs through it. So Buckeye Pipeline runs diagonally, slicing through the site. Union Ditch is also northwest of the site. I-80, of course, is to the north. There are some flood zones that have been noted on our FEMA maps that we have. And as I mentioned, 76th Avenue runs to the east of the site. It's currently in an unimproved condition. And there is a temporary traffic signal at Panduit Drive and 191st. There's an existing intergovernmental agreement, it's IGA, that is standing with Will County. Will County has jurisdiction over 191st Street. And there's a small, like I said, it's mostly vacant. There's a small paved parking lot on 191st Street nestled into the site. So as far as the zoning, this is ORI, Office Restricted Industrial. To the north, we have I-80, northwest is Panduit with their detention, and to the east is Brookside Marketplace. To the south is some unincorporated property on the north side of 191st, that not included portion. That is a commercial residential blend. To the south of 191st Street is one of our fire stations and part of the Brookside Glen PUD with an underlying commercial B3 zoning. To the west is vacant ORI land. So as far as the requests, so sorry, it's a bit of a lengthy request up on screen, but we're here to propose establishment of a planned unit development along with a final plat of consolidation, a plat of vacation, annexation, rezoning, and site plan. Up on screen are exceptions, which is relief to the zoning ordinance for various aspects to the proposal. And the rezoning as well is part of the request. That would be to rezone this, establish a PUD, and have the underlying zoning change to commercial B3. The annexation is actually a very narrow strip of land that is on the east side of that not included portion. So it's a little 10-foot wide by 265-foot deep parcel. And then the vacation would be of vacating 76th Avenue to the developer. So the proposal is multi-phase. So it's been identified as a two-phase development. And it will provide with commercial use, sports, retail, dining, and some of this will depend on future lot development. For now, phase one, they're proposing it as a single lot to place a large sports dome with a precast support building. So along with this, the various ways to access that site and serve that site for that particular use are proposed now. So that would be to make the sidewalks and roadway to access it, to provide that final plat to make everything as one lot, as well as a preliminary plat to show how they could foresee those different future commercial lots breaking out. And of course, there are Will County requirements that they would need to meet. In going future into phase 2, there would be a smaller dome as well. So we have what we'll call a large dome, that's phase 1, and a smaller dome, phase 2. So that dome and remaining site improvements would go in with the formal final re-subdivision and access drives. So for the large dome, what is proposed is a 142,000 square foot sports facility. It will primarily be used for sports training. There will be some tournament use in the winters on weekends, but overall it's sports intended for baseball, lacrosse, softball, things like that. And the economic development aspect of it is to generate non-local users and anticipated tax generation and revenue to the village. So entertainment, lodging, that sort of thing. The support building will be adjacent to the dome, so it will provide all the necessary services as well as 2 tenants, one of which would be a sports medicine and the other of which would be a restaurant. So the hours would be 7 days a week, 3 to 10 p.m., Monday through Friday, and then Saturday, Sunday, 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. Other uses that potentially could go on the site in the future would be a 40 to 50,000 square foot large box commercial development west of the dome. But again, this is a phased project. So we did have this case for the sports dome come to Plan Commission about a couple months ago. There were some open items, and so following that workshop and resubmittals by the petitioners, various open items have been addressed. So we have those stricken through the presentation. So this is the current site plan that's been provided. So north is up, and you can see in the middle is the sports dome with the parking to the east, and to the west behind it, that open space would be part of a phase 2, 40 to 50,000 commercial retail. To the north of the large dome would be the future second dome. So that would be a 30,000 square foot facility. So for phase 1 though, they would propose grass to be in that area to avoid having any parking go there when it should be free and clear. The majority of the parking, as I said, is to the east. One of the changes that's been made to this plan since the workshop is the most southern row of parking has been changed to landscaping to avoid any conflicts with access drive coming through. So I have arrows showing access points to the site. So to the left and the west is Panduit Drive, so vehicles could come through at 2 points. For the most part, they would come in on the southerly access that's a 40-foot ingress egress. And the support building would be connecting, the access would be able to serve everyone coming through into the support building. So they would come to the east and then park and then come into the building. As far as employees would park to the north of the building, so that would be that second entrance that you see from Panduit Drive. Staff has listed a couple of conditions regarding this. So we would condition final engineering approval and other jurisdictions. There are a lot of jurisdictions that are associated with this property. So the Buckeye Pipeline, Will County, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has corresponded with the applicant, and FEMA, et cetera. So we would want that all conditioned, as well as a condition that future lots and the driveways would be subject to further review and comment. So parking studies and traffic studies reflecting that full build out for phase 2. There are some exceptions, so some relief that's required. The site plan that I showed you that was for phase 1, the whole 48 acres would be one lot, but anticipating it to be broken into Phase 2. That's when the respective lot lines would shrink its setbacks. So there are front yard parking and setbacks that would be triggered, as well as exceeding the maximum of 1 curb cut in this zoning area, and screening. So as far as the mechanical pads, they will be screened, but the trucks that would come in, they would not be visible for much length of time, but just to note that there would be momentary screening for those to the west, to Panduit Drive. As far as engineering and access, so I have a color-coded image up here that shows in green what would be Phase 1 and yellow is Phase 2. So the access in Phase 1, they would come in off of Panduit Drive and then go east along this 40-foot wide egress, and then come into the site to the parking lot for the dome. The 76th Avenue, the northern part of that, they would improve that as part of Phase 1. Phase 2, they would improve the southern portion of it. And other things that are to note, Will County has provided their review of the traffic study. So as I mentioned, there's an existing intergovernmental agreement. An amendment would be required, and conditions that staff has noted that reflect Will County's review would be to make the current temporary signal at Panduit Drive and 191st into a permanent signal, and deceleration lanes to 76th Avenue. And so the county currently wants this completed prior to the large dome's opening. The petitioner is working with them on that. So as far as the plat, I have up on screen the final plat of making everything one lot on the left, and then to the right of that would be the anticipated breakdown of the multi-lots with the various other commercial entities, and then to the right of that is the very long skinny piece would be 76th Avenue, vacating that. The annexation isn't shown in there, but again, it's just to the east of the small notched out portion on the south of our site. As far as easements, so, you know, with, right now with the final plat being everything is one lot, easements such as like for drainage or ingress, egress, those are shown on the plat. And for Phase 2, we would want a condition that CC&R's covenants and restrictions and a dormant SSA would be required. And that takes care of the plats. So as far as the landscaping, that Buckeye pipeline that runs through the site was a concern that we had at the workshop, and they've said, the petitioner has since worked with them in preliminary discussions. So for the pipeline, at this point, there's no preliminary concern, but we would like to have a condition that if any plantings were to be removed, then those relocations would need to happen with village staff approval. And as far as other things that have changed since the workshop, they provided screening for mechanical pads. So a large dome like this, it requires many pads for air circulation, backup generators, that sort of thing. So they provided screening. They've given us extra trees. I've noted them in red, so they kind of dot along the east and the south. And as far as the fire access to the west of the site, in Phase 2, they would propose what we call a grasscrete. So it's a semi-pervious type of structure that would allow fire truck vehicles to go through. And so you can see there, along with a couple other items in red, just shows other various improvements that they've made. So there are some landscape code waivers, but overall, given the unique constraints of the site, they provided a nice nuanced approach that helps take ample landscaping into account. As far as architecture, here's the renderings that they've proposed as phase 1. So if a smaller dome were to come in phase 2, that would be to the right of it. So you're looking sort of northwesterly and west. As far as the elevations, so the large dome itself is proposed 75 feet tall, and there are some exceptions that would be required for architecture to the code, namely masonry. So they've provided, of course, the dome itself, that would be a 0% masonry. The petitioner has provided a table, which is in the staff report, that indicates their calculations of how much materials they have that would qualify. But overall, for the most part, it's precast panels with metal and some brick. And the color scheme of which we talked about at the workshop, this is a cool contemporary tone of colors. The petitioner referenced nearby Panduit building and just their preference to have a cool contemporary theme of colors. So here you can see this is just the front of that support building, so looking west. I noted here that table of the material percentages as well as our technical code requirements. 75% face brick would be the requirement for that support building. CMU and cinder blocks are not permitted ordinarily by code. So you can see that the exceptions would be for the masonry, alternate building materials, and storefront transparency. Staff noted that nearby Brookside Marketplace, as well as many other places here in the village, the theme is typically to have warmer, more traditional red tones of brick. So these are a few images from Brookside Marketplace. And then as far as signage, no signage has been proposed, but staff has noted to the petitioner that if they do want to propose something, it would need to meet code, and that would, any signage that would not comply otherwise, that would require a substantial deviation to the PUD. And as far as parking, so our code has some guidance to provide on certain uses, but not something as unique as a sports dome. First of all, on the one part of the support building, there would be a restaurant proposed. So our code calls out dining would be one space for 3 seats, one per employee, and then to the other side of the building, the sports medicine, that would be a medical office. So that's 2 spaces per office plus 1 per employee. As far as retail, our code says in PUDs, it's by 6.5 spaces per 1,000 gross square foot area. So for a use like the sports dome, we don't have a specific code. It is up to the Plan Commission's discretion. So proposed, the petitioner, by determining that there would be 2 games or two practices happening at a time, 2 teams on the field at a time, with roughly half of the parents dropping off and half staying, if you're counting the parent with that child as 1 vehicle, plus about 20 employees for the dome. They calculate about 50 spaces would be used. At the times where those practices transition to the next group coming in and the first group leaving, there may be another 30 vehicles, so 50 to 80. As far as how many people do they expect throughout the day, in the week, Monday through Friday, they estimate 200 patrons, with Saturday and Sunday 250. The parking in total is 350 spaces, most of them in that main parking field and a small portion northwest of the large dome. Largely that would be for the dome's employees. An accessible route has been determined. They may need to tweak, locate a specific with their accessible parking space. All of that would need to meet the Illinois state code. As far as condition, we've noted that overflow, if there is any overflow needed, if they cannot maintain the parking on that site, as you see in the site plan, then they would need to seek using the future lots 3 and 4. So that is the area immediately south of the dome. So the petitioner has agreed to this condition. Last, for the lighting, lighting specs were, for the most part, provided. Staff did not see a spec sheet for the wall sconces, so on that support building. So we simply will condition that lighting, as our zoning code asks for, must be what's called U0, no up lighting. And that could be simply provided at permitting. The fixtures are just rectangular black sconces. And then secondly, if any light poles do end up needing relocation due to the pipeline did not raise concerns about that at this time, but if they do, then that would be required at permitting as well, plan approval. That concludes my presentation. I have the standards up on screen, and I have Steve Vernon, who is working with the petitioner, Mr. Gutierrez, and they're here to be able to speak.
They're here tonight?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Would you like to come up and address us here? We'll swear you in first, if that's okay. Your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm that the information you're about to give this hearing to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
My name is Steve Vernon with Vernon Development. I've been working with the village and Mr. Gutierrez to develop this 48-acre plan. We think it's an exciting use of the dormant space, the dormant land that's been there for many years. I think pretty much everything has been covered in a very lengthy presentation, which is necessary to go over all the details. But that being said, I'm sure there are questions that perhaps were not answered, and I'm here to try to review those.
Okay, well, then we're gonna ask some questions. Trustee Hamilton, would you like to lead us off?
I do not have questions.
Okay, trustee Merrick?
Yeah, so I have a couple questions. One is about the parking. So it's listed like, somewhere between 50 and 80. But for weekends, clearly, if this draws out-of-town teams, there'll be, even if there's only 2 places to play for 4 teams, there'll be more than 4 teams as part of the tournament. And most of the folks who come from out of town stay parked and are inside, and hence the restaurant, right? That's where you're gonna have people who are waiting in between games using the restaurant. So I'm wondering about when you have tournaments in that space, what parking will actually look like. It seems as if, I'm not concerned necessarily about the total number of spaces, but just the counting of heads. It strikes me
Sure.
that it would be much higher than
Sure.
what's being proposed.
First, I'll let Dan answer any questions that are not answered by myself. But the intent is to have 2 teams on each field and 2 fields. Each team's got 15 players. We're really not planning any type of seating. A couple parents, may be in there to visit, but we're not looking at this as a stand-around spectator thing, even for tournaments. So there will be multiple teams coming, going. They'll be scheduled. And that being said, we still think we have 3 to 4 times the anticipated parking.
Okay.
And in talking with my owner, he thinks if we ever actually had to use some parking on 3 and 4, God bless, it's the best thing that could happen to him, and he'd be happy to use those additional lots.
Okay, yeah,
And I will say the benefit of kind of how it's gonna be phased too is they're gonna open the dome. It is a very unique use, right? It's a unique space.
yeah,
So we trust they know the market a little better than we would because it's a unique one. But the good news is they have plenty of space if there was a parking issue. Nobody's really parking off site here because there's nowhere to park.
yeah, I got it,
They
or
would be
nowhere to walk
planning
to it.
to
either.
expand the parking.
Yeah, I'm not less concerned. I mean, I'm kind of surprised that, that it wouldn't have any indoor seating for these. There's one in Crown Point, one in Peoria, that are good models for these sorts of things. There's others in other places that are close by, and they almost always have parents watching games. if you have tournaments. So, and then for the phase two, you're looking at like stores or other things like that. Almost always these domes come with outdoor sports that are attached to it. That's the expansion piece. What does phase two look like?
Well, we have 8 additional lots. Lot 2, which is immediately to the west, that space is big enough to have a 40 to 50,000 square foot facility, which we think could be something like a PGA golf type of place, but just a whole variety of things. Then we have remaining lots 3 through 9. 2 of them are specifically designed for a Jack-in-the-Box type spot, the type of thing that we just looked at earlier, a McDonald's. And then we have others that could be a small bank, it could be retail. There's a variety of uses, and I think the owner's already working with individual retailers in the area to try to find sources to use those those properties up.
Okay.
And that is conceptual, so those could change depending on, hey, what they find the market is looking for with those lots. But they wanted to plan, obviously, everything needs to fit together, so as they went
Right.
forward with phase 1, they wanted to have an idea of what was gonna happen.
We have to get all the utilities in now, but the lots themselves are somewhat flexible, particularly east-west. And so if somebody were to come in and say, oh, I need 10 more feet, the way we're designing the utilities to function here is we could come back to the board and say, we'd like to redo this plat and make this lot a little bit wider.
Okay.
So it's pretty flexible. Right now is the plan to be very,
So
very
any of those
flexible.
things could go in?
Yes,
Outdoor fields, banks, restaurants, any of that?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Gaskell.
No comments.
Okay, Commissioner Stokos.
No questions.
Okay. Let's talk about people in the audience here. Is there anyone else that wishes to comment or ask a question regarding this?
Yes.
Okay, sir, if you could come up and
Name is
let me
James
swear you in.
Atten.
I'll swear you in, please. Do you swear or affirm that the information you're about to give this hearing to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes,
And your name, please?
James Atten.
Okay,
Sir, can you
James.
please write your name
Please.
on the
It's on here.
sign?
Yep,
Okay.
signed it too. I want to ask about the traffic signal. You say the entrance is going to be Panduit's Road?
That is
Panduit's
correct. Right
Drive,
now,
and
that
there's
is
a light there right now.
That is
I don't,
temporary.
well, it's been there a long time. But anyway,
temporary,
what
but
about
it's not-
76th Avenue? Is that going to be opened up for entrance at all?
So in phase 2, what you see, the lower portion of it in yellow, that would be improved as part of that second phase of development.
Okay, but you're not putting another traffic signal there, are you?
No, one
There's-
is not
yeah,
proposed.
There's no plan.
The
Because you're gonna put
acceleration
one on
lane?
this other project that I'm really here for, on the other side of the street. Because they are gonna put a traffic signal on the entrance behind Target.
Yes, there's no signal
Then we'd
planned
have
for
6 of
here
them
except for
between
the one
80th Avenue and Harlem. We're gonna have a lot of traffic signals, a
So
lot of
there's
traffic.
not, there's no other new traffic signal
Okay.
proposed with this. It would just be the current ones on like wood poles with, it's temporary in the fact that they're not like the permanent posted ones. That's what'll have to be improved at that intersection. It'll become like a permanent installation.
Yeah,
But there's no new signals that are proposed with this.
okay.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to address this? Okay, having no one, Lori, could we have the standards?
If
You
you
have
want-
to close the public
Yeah.
hearing.
Oh, we gotta close the hearing before the standards?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing, please.
Make a motion.
Okay,
Second.
okay. The motion made by Commissioner Gaskell, second by Commissioner Stokos. Everyone in favor of closing the hearing, signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay, the hearing is closed. Let's go on to the standards.
Okay. So first are standards for rezoning, so to rezone it from ORI to B3. Regarding use and zoning of nearby property, B3 zoning is consistent with those in the area. We reference Brookside Marketplace to the east, along with its detention basin and generally it's major retail commercial development. Land nearby along the south side of 191st at 80th Avenue is also zoned B3. Nearby access to major transportation corridors also make the location viable for commercial uses. As far as number 2, property values being diminished by particular zoning, zoning change is not anticipated to lower any property values. Thirdly, the extent to which destruction of property values of the complaining party benefits the health, safety, or general welfare of the public. No property value reductions or complaining parties have been identified. B3 zoning will allow for uses which will provide benefits to the community, such as indoor recreational facilities that may enhance the health and welfare of the public. Next, the relative gain to the public as compared to hardship imposed on the property owner. B3 allows for benefits to the community, enhancing health and welfare, and includes indoor. Oh, sorry about that. Sorry. I leaned on it, sorry. Thanks, Jason. So the, where was I? Okay, so yeah, the development includes indoor recreational facility for sports team training of various athletic levels, youth, high school, college, professional, dining and retail will further support the use. Such a development currently does not exist at the scale in the vicinity. As far as suitability, the property has sufficient access to roads, utilities, and location for general business and commercial use. Length of time, the property has been vacant. The property was previously used as a 9-hole golf course until 2012, at which point it received a 3-year approval for agricultural use. The lot has been vacant with little interest as office restricted industrial development since then. Regarding public need, development will provide indoor recreational opportunities for those various athletic levels, as well as additional dining and retail, and will provide new job opportunities. Last, the thoroughness in which the municipality has planned for the use. The area has been zoned as ORI for many years with little interest for development. Future ORI use is unlikely. Rezoning will be contiguous to B3 zoning of Brookside Marketplace. Secondly, special use standards. So regarding public health, safety, general welfare, there is no danger identified with this proposed PUD. Regarding use and enjoyment of other properties, the property to the east is Brookside Marketplace along with detention, and detention as well for Panduit to the north, and to the west is vacant land, and to the south is the fire station, vacant land, and unincorporated land. Thirdly, that the use will not impede normal and orderly development. PUD will not do such. 191st Street includes nearby properties also zoned for general business, similar to the PUD. The Sports Dome complex will be proposed further set back from 191st Street. Adequate utilities, access roads, drainage, and other necessary facilities. These are being provided and proposed throughout the new development's 2-phase proposal. Adequate measures for ingress and egress. Ingress and egress access points for Phase 1 and preliminarily for Phase 2 have been reviewed by Village Engineering for their best placement on site and for overall traffic flow. And in regards to conforming to other regulations, buildings will comply with all other code requirements that are not covered by the exceptions to the zoning ordinance, nor as indicated in the PUD documents. As far as economic development, this will be considered a vibrant commercial center, providing job opportunities and draw non-local users who are anticipated to seek dining, fuel, entertainment, and lodging in the area. And this is anticipated to provide a significant increase in sales and property tax revenue where existing vacant land does not provide. And then there are standards for establishing a PUD. Staff response findings are not provided, but they are included in your report and up on screen. So 2 pages of that. And then last, architecture and site plan. Again, staff response is not required for findings. They're in the report and I have them up on screen. And then I have motions on screen.
Okay, thank you, Lori. Chair will entertain a motion at this time.
I'll make a motion.
Appreciate that.
I make a motion to recommend that the village board grant the petitioner Roberto D. Gutierrez on behalf of GK Development Properties LLC a map amendment rezoning of the 48-acre property generally located on the north side of 191st Street between Panduit Drive and 76th Avenue from the existing ORI, Office and Restricted Industrial Zoning District, to the B3, General Business and Commercial Zoning District, and adopt the findings of fact as proposed in the December 5, 2024 staff report.
Thank you.
That's the motion. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Okay, the motion's been made by trustee Hamilton and seconded by I'm sorry. The motion's been made by Commissioner Hamilton and seconded by Commissioner Stoklos. Lori, could we do a roll call, please?
Commissioner Gaskell.
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Yes.
Commissioner Merrick.
Yes.
Commissioner Sepisi.
Yes.
Commissioner Stoklos.
Yes.
Chairman Gray.
I abstain.
I'm sorry. My apologies. So,
I'm recused from this one.
my apologies. So it was Acting Chair
You're
Sepisi.
all good. Only for a few more minutes. So the motion's carried. We have a second motion to receive. If someone can make a motion, please. Anybody?
I'd like to make that motion too.
Okay. Thank you, Terry.
All right. I will make a motion to recommend that the village board grant the petitioner Roberto D. Gutierrez on behalf of GK Development Properties LLC a special use to establish the new Interstate Sports Dome Plan Unit Development in accordance with all the plans and documents submitted and listed herein, and adopt the findings of fact as proposed in the December 5, 2024 staff report, subject to the conditions as noted in the staff report. Is that adequate?
Yes.
Okay, we have that motion in. Do we have a second on that?
Second.
Okay. Motion made once again by trustee Hamilton and again seconded by our trustee. Motion made by Commissioner Hamilton and seconded again by Commissioner Stoklos. May we have a roll call, please?
Okay, I will get this right this time. Commissioner Gaskell.
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Yes.
Commissioner Merrick.
Yes.
Commissioner Stoklos.
Yes.
Acting Chair Sepisi.
Yes. Okay, we have a third motion about the plats.
The motion is up on screen. The end of that motion is still legible on the screen, ending with IDOT.
Okay.
And you can, who's ever making the motion, can just reference the conditions in the staff report similar to the last one, if you
Okay.
don't want to read this.
So Esteem, someone to make a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make that motion also. I make a motion to recommend that the village board grant approval to the petitioner, Roberto D. Gutierrez, on behalf of GK Development Properties LLC, Interstate Sports Dome Final Plat of Consolidation, dated November 6, 2024, and a plat of vacation for 40 feet of the 76th Avenue roadway from 191st Street to I-80, vacating to private ownership, dated October 24, 2024, submitted and listed herein, subject to the conditions as noted in the staff report.
Okay, the motion has been made. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Okay, the motion was made once again by Commissioner Hamilton. This time it was seconded by Commissioner Gaskell. Lori, one more time.
Commissioner Gaskell.
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Yes.
Commissioner Merrick.
Yes.
Commissioner Stoklos.
Yes.
And Acting Chair Sepisi.
Yes. Okay, we're up again with motion number 4.
I'm going to do all of them.
Go for it.
I make a motion to grant the petitioner Robert D. Gutierrez on behalf of GK Development Properties LLC site plan and architectural approval for the development of 142,500 square feet sports dome facility with support building at 7600 West 191st Street in accordance with the plans submitted, and adopt the findings of facts as proposed in the December 5, 2024 staff report, subject to the conditions as noted in the staff report.
Okay, the motion's been made. Is there a second to this motion?
Second.
Okay, the motion was once again made by Commissioner Hamilton, seconded by Commissioner Stoklos. May we have another roll call?
Commissioner Gaskell.
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Yes.
Commissioner Merrick.
Yes.
Commissioner Stoklos.
Yes.
Acting Chair Sepisi.
Yes. Okay, all these motions carried unanimously, and they will be discussed at the village board meeting on December 17th of this year. So if you gentlemen wish to get with staff, and they can discuss your participation in that. And thank you very much for your time. Okay. Before we go on to the next item,
Yes,
We're going
thank
to-
you, Acting Commissioner.
Trade Black, or Trade
Uh,
Back.
No, it's Commissioner Sepisi, stay there, as I have to recuse myself from item 5 as well, because one of the listed tenants on this development is a client of the engineering company I work for, with a project that is specific to this site that I am working on directly. So,
I'll be here. Okay, here we go. This is public hearing. Item number 5 is the Brookside Creek Retail Center Planned Unit Development on the southwest corner of 191st Street and Harlem Avenue. Special use for PUD rezoning, final plat site plan. Reviewing the proposed 72-acre development at the southwest corner of 191st Street and Harlem Avenue, the petitioner is proposing to subdivide the property to attract different commercial uses to the area. The expected tenants include a gas and wash, a McDonald's, and Auto Nation. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Motion,
Second.
okay, moved by trustee Merrick, was that right? I didn't hear.
Yeah.
Okay. And seconded by trustee Stoklos. All those in favor of opening the hearing signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, then we will begin. Of course, now we have notification made to the various media about this tonight, so if we can start with the staff presentation.
Sure, and before I get into the meat of what's getting proposed, I do want to note that there was also some public comment that was provided to staff, some questions, so that was all provided to the Plan Commission. We had printed that out for you guys. And then there was also letters from the attorneys representing the kind of corner property that we'll get into as well that was provided to the Plan Commission. So those will be entered into the record for today, but just want to note that. With some of the public comment on this, it was related to kind of just the process in general. So some of that was explained, but we went through a couple public hearings here, but I just want to note, this is a public hearing with the Plan Commission. There's no final decisions at this meeting, so it goes to the village board. And the Plan Commission is just a recommending body. So no final decisions are here today. It's really here to go through the project, make it all public, give any of the public or the neighbors a chance to speak or bring up any comments as well. So before it goes to the village board and before any decisions are made, so.
Thank you.
Yep. So this project is going to be at the southwest corner of 191st and Harlem. It's approximately 72 acres. 55 acres of that still needs to be annexed. There is a portion already in the village. So it's kind of split. There's a creek that runs between the two properties. That really kind of splits the section that's already been annexed into the village, and then the portion that still needs to be annexed. Plan Commission doesn't really review the annexations themselves. That goes to the village board, but you guys do provide the feedback in terms of the overall zoning. So that's part of what's before you today. The properties that are in the village are zoned R1 and R2. Those are just tend to be, so those are kind of the default zoning for the village. So if something annexes into the village and isn't given zoning, it defaults as R1. The R2 section is very small, and it kind of looks like it's a leftover section that was in there, and maybe there was a house on it at one point, but it's a very small section that's on that parcel. The unincorporated parcel is in Will County that is owned A1, which is like their agricultural use. The county tends to zone it what its current use is, so they don't like rezone anything very often. Overall zoning here is commercial to the north. That's the Brookside Marketplace Shopping Center. As we get into this, this is really kind of meant to be a very similar style to kind of what you see in that commercial development, with kind of some anchor tenants and outlots associated with it. And then to the east as well is zoned commercial, but it's largely vacant land. The hard corner that's not part of this is zone B3, and then also on the other side of Harlem is zone B3 as well. And that was kind of with the recent PUD that came forward with the anchor of Topgolf being up by CarMax. That overall area came in as a planned unit development. Residential is to the south and west of the property, and it's Brookside, the Brookside Glen area. And then its current use has kind of been farmland over the years. So it's had a variety of different uses on it. So the history of the site here is really it was a farm for a while. Up in the northwest corner, you can see kind of a small wooded area. There used to be a house there, so that was kind of a farmhouse for the overall farm area, which was even bigger and incorporated the portions of Brookside Glen that are already been developed. Around 1996 is when Lincoln Way School District, High School District 210 purchased the property here. The initial thought was kind of to do Lincoln Way North at this property. I don't know whose idea it was to put a high school at a really busy intersection off the expressway, but clearly they came to that same conclusion that it wasn't the best location, and they built it about a mile south where it was for a number of years. Kind of after that, the school district marketed the site, its primary use being commercial, just because it's located off the expressway at a pretty busy intersection here. That's always kind of been thought of as the highest and best use of what could happen on this property because of kind of the traffic and the location out there. And no connections to kind of any of the residential areas that exist there today. So over the years, there was a Walmart, Sam's Club, Woodman grocery stores, kind of all got proposed there over the year with different layouts. The property itself is pretty difficult actually to develop, which is kind of where a lot of these hurdles have come in. There's that existing creek that's running through the property. There's a pipeline location on this one as well, the same pipeline that was on the last project. Runs diagonal through this property as well. You can almost kind of see it on the aerial, but it's a little bit raised there. There's wetlands, floodplain, and then access has also been an issue with that. Kind of where the current signal is there actually aligns with that creek that's there. So it's not, it's really infeasible for anybody to get that access there. It would take a long number of years and a lot of money to be able to kind of build up and be able to get a signal that aligns with the current signal. So it's not the best location when they put that in to really help this site develop, which will play into kind of how they have this laid out later, is that they couldn't really get that signal there. And then just overall access has been pretty limited between the county and IDOT in terms of what kind of access on these roads in this close to the intersection can have. So just kind of some of the hurdles with the overall property that you'll kind of see play into what the overall site plan is. The land that's here was sold to the petitioner in February 2022, and since then they've been working with a lot of different organizations, the U.S. Army Corps, FEMA, and a lot of other ones to just kind of, and their engineers to really figure out what's the best way that they can really develop this property. And here's just an example. So this is kind of the conceptual plan Walmart had, which really pushed the Walmart kind of to the southwest, and then had really all the way to the south and the west corner of this property, and focused a lot of the detention that's going to be needed. And you'll see that in all of these. There's a lot of detention, a lot of comp storage that's used for the wetlands. If you're going to move them, build on them, change them, you have to provide additional storage to make sure that not only you're taking on the water that's in there now, but then anything else that could be excessive as well. So this obviously, there was a number of issues with it, including access, including being really close to existing homes, and how to screen a Walmart that's that close was difficult. So Woodbins, this was their initial concept plan as well, which again, you can kind of see a lot of the floodplain as well as then outlots kind of closer to 191st Street. That was kind of worked on in 2017 and didn't quite move forward as well. The one parcel that is not part of this is the hard corner of the parcel. I'm not exactly sure when that was subdivided from the rest of the property, but it has kind of been on its own for quite some time. So again, this overall proposal doesn't include that. It has a separate owner. That was approved in 2016. It came through Plan Commission, Village Board, had development agreement, zoning, to be able to develop that corner. The overall proposal was for a multi-tenant shopping center, which you can see on there, and had the site plan that's on this as well approved. So to this day, that still stands as kind of what's approved out there from a zoning, site plan, and development agreement perspective. One of the objection letters, we don't need to go into a lot of detail on it, but I did want to address just kind of a couple things because that did call out the development agreement on this parcel. And both staff and our attorney have kind of reviewed the development agreement in that letter, so feel free, if you have questions about it, let us know. But in general, that development agreement is only for this corner parcel. It does not change any agreements. It doesn't relate to any zoning on this overall parcel that's before you guys today. It also relates to this corner parcel in terms of having the shopping center that was approved, the exhibits that are in the development agreement that show this site plan, an overall shopping center, not what they're referring to as a Quick Trip or a gas station that would go there. So the development agreement would need to be amended to even allow for what they're saying they want to propose here. The obtaining of the easements is on the developer, so there was the thought that the access on 191st Street is really only temporary, and that was kind of even through Will County, didn't want that to be kind of where the permanent access was. But because this was the first development going forward, they said, okay, we'll give you a temporary access, but we want you to try and get access to the neighboring property, and so that onus was put on them to obtain that access from the neighboring property owners. So at the time, it was Lincoln Way School District. From that time to now, they have not been party to that development agreement. Lastly, I'll just note that cross-access by our code is required to neighboring development lots. So to the west of this, there will be a developmental lot. It's under contract with AutoNation, but there hasn't been any finalized plans or anything submitted for that development. So cross-access will need to happen with that property, and that's in our code. And the developer here has said that they would provide that cross-access, but easements tend to come in when you actually get a development proposal. So you can't just kind of throw them on a plat and hope it all works out. So cross-access, cross-parking, utility, if there's volume control or stormwater or anything like that, all those easements come in with the development proposal. So when they actually propose something on that site, it's when you guys would also see the easements come forward with it. So, I believe that part of their request is asking for cross-access. They would get cross-access there. So, enough of that. So the request for the actual proposal today for the overall PUD is rezoning the overall area to B3, which is our general business and commercial district. They're looking for a special use for a planned unit development. Final plan of subdivision, and then site plan approval. So similar to the last project as well. Overall here, you have a layout of really 7 development lots, and then everything else will be common area property owned by the association of this area. Most of it being detention, comp storage, which will be open green space essentially in there. to retain stormwater. So overall here, the developer wanted to really do any project of this scale, you usually need people on board to be able to actually fund it and be able to move forward with it. So same thing kind of happened with Brookside Marketplace to the north. They kind of had their immediate anchor tenants, and then they kind of find people to kind of fill in the outlots from there. So here they have a gas and wash that's proposed on the lot 1. Lot 2 and 3 would be sold with lot 6 to what's expected to be a grocer or some type of anchor tenant that would be there, but the expectation is a grocer at this point. Lot 4 would be AutoNation and car dealership is under contract. And lot 5 would be a coffee shop with a drive-through on a slightly smaller lot. And then lot 6 is that grocer, and lot 7 would be McDonald's. So they have contracts that are in place on some of those. The only one that's officially submitted and kind of gone forward with their site design is Gas and Wash, which is after this. It is obviously tied to this approval in every way too. If this got continued, that would have to be continued, which is why it's after this. So they always kind of have to be tied together. But they did have their plans, they moved forward, and basically took that upon themselves to hopefully develop with the overall property. So that's why Gas and Wash is after this project as well. Overall, the developer, so they took the last year and a half, couple of years to really kind of lay out how this can best be developed. So there's obviously a lot of need for detention and comp storage to develop this property. And then they really kind of looked at the past history and went, hey, how can we move as much of the development kind of towards 191st and Harlem as possible while buffering some of the homes that are adjacent to this property. So if you look at this, it's kind of laying out kind of where the light green is, all the essentially will be open space detention area, not heavily landscaped, but is going to be open before you hit any of the development lots. That'll be to the north and the west of where the homes are at. The darker green around the perimeter is going to be a landscape buffer. The expectation would be a berm there as well, which I'll get into. There's some options there that the developer's open to as well based on some of the residents' feedback. But then on top of this, I will also say that there will be landscaping on the individual lots themselves. So like the grocer lot will also be required to have perimeter landscaping based on our landscape code. So. We did put in a condition, and that's kind of what is open for discussion, and we're open to see what the residents want, because we've heard multiple lines of feedback. They're open to the berm. They can make a berm, especially to the south, if the park district's willing to work with them to get the pathway that's there and use some of that land to kind of increase the size of that berm. If that doesn't work, they're willing to do a fence along the property line. And then again, we heard resident feedback that they'd actually might prefer the fence along kind of where the developments are rather than at the perimeter. And the developer has said they're open to any 3 of those options. They just kind of would need direction to do one or the other. So we did kind of write a condition in there that kind of leaves it to do the berm first, but if there is one that's preferred, we can always amend that condition too before any votes. With the overall PUD, the land uses are going to be B3 land uses. There are a few changes to that. Obviously with Gas and Wash proposed, that would be a permitted use just on that lot 1 of this PUD, as well as then vehicle sales because AutoNation is known. There are also some uses that have been removed that don't really work with this overall area as we look at it as kind of an entertainment retail area. So like currency exchanges, educational facilities, funeral homes, banks that don't really kind of fit with the retail focus of this area. Signage, they're proposing kind of uniformed signage for the overall shopping center, so they'll have shared signage. There's an allowance for up to 3 of those on this property, just kind of where the different entrances are, and what size they can be, how often they can be spaced out. The goal is to have something similar to what's up there, so it won't be exact, but it's, I believe, Wheaton Town Center or Town Square is the example of kind of what they're looking to do out there. Those signs would be on the common area properties near to the entrances. They've also asked for some allowances for just to have the development signs out there. Obviously, they have some contracts, some stuff under letters of intent, but they want to be able to have the ability to market the properties if they need to out there for sale. Parking and access, so here's kind of that layout of where you'd have access. So there's the new signal that would be kind of at the furthest northwest. That aligns with the existing Brookside Marketplace access that's furthest west. That's kind of their secondary access out of Brookside Marketplace. And that's really because with all this, with really any development over here, they kind of need access to a signal based on how much traffic is here. And again, with that creek location, it really does not work to put a signal at that. That's preferred for everybody, but it's just not really possible with that creek location. So this is kind of the best secondary one. It does have to go through county reviews, and it will be, all those signals will be tied together. So it can work if you just have them all run on different routes. It doesn't, but they all have to kind of be tied together. So if one goes off, they all kind of work in sync. So I think we've all probably been in areas where that works really well, and you kind of notice, hey, all these signals are tied together. And then we've been to areas where it's not. But Will County is reviewing this, and they're on top of it. For signals to be that close, they always need to be tied together. So, and then the other access points on this will be right in, right out. So those will not be full access points. So the only full access point will be that signal. And that's very similar to, again, how Brookside Marketplace works with just one access point. And really having those offset, as long as the signals are tied together, kind of moves now you don't have all that traffic from 2 large shopping centers at one location. It gives a little bit more flexibility in terms of how vehicles can move in and out of the center. The cross-access across this, so any of the lots that are neighboring to each other do have to provide cross-access wherever it's possible, and then into any other adjacent lots, so like the corner lot. So there is still cross-access needed. In addition, they have then that kind of internal drive aisle through the site. 6-foot sidewalks are proposed around 191st Street and Harlem Avenue, so they'd have public sidewalks there. There's also a private walkway that will run kind of along that internal drive. So the goal is to kind of be able to link all these sites together where you could walk between the properties. It isn't the most walkable area, but the goal is, especially as we're going through our new comprehensive plan, that's one of the big kind of feedback points we get from residents is that it's difficult to walk places, right? So we want to improve that, especially when we have new development coming in. So the goal is, hopefully if you live around here, you would go shop at the grocery store, and if it's a nice day, you could walk there. Right now, if you didn't put in the sidewalks, you'd have no option. You'd have to get in your car just to drive a block and go in there. So, just to show kind of some of the landscaping, it's a big site, but they've provided that buffer again wherever there's existing residential. They've got that buffer, and again, they plan to do a berm. It's obviously pretty tight with this site of where that can go or how big it can get. But again, especially to the south, if the Frankfurt Square Park District is open, they can actually make that kind of a substantial berm there that'll help even build up the landscaping a little bit more. A fence is the alternative option that they kind of have proposed at the perimeter, but again, they're open to moving that towards the development sites themselves rather than right on the property line. So again, we have that recommended condition of the berm or the fence that can change based upon what the feedback is. In addition to that, then again, this is just an example of 2 of the sites, but any of the development sites would be required to have it. So they'd have a very similar landscape layout to that berm, which is another condition of the PUD approval, that they would kind of have a similar layout and species selection for those individual sites. So throughout this, you get kind of from the homes, they're looking to buffer views as much as they can from this, right? So you got the 300, depending on what house it is, it's anywhere from like 300 to 720 to 800 square feet throughout this. But the closest one's about 310, and that's there on the south side of it. So they're looking to try and buffer those views as much as possible. So they have not only the first line of kind of landscape buffering around it, they'll have a berm or a fence, and then there'll be a second round of landscaping around the perimeter of each site as well. So the hope is, and then the 300 feet. So the hope is between all of that, you've got something nice you look at, and you got a number of kind of rows of landscaping onto this site from any of the residential. The final plat that's getting approved, so there's the 7 lots, there's 3 total outlots. There's dedication of the right-of-way for Will County and that new signal at the intersection, so they need that widened a little bit to fit in all the signal equipment. There's a condition of that plat on engineering and attorney review, as we do with all plats. And then additionally, there's a condition that the developer will agree to a dormant SSA. Some of you have been here on these in the past, so it's really so that way the village doesn't get stuck maintaining ponds or common areas in the future. If that association went under, the village technically might have to maintain it, but we could essentially tax all the properties in there to maintain whatever common area properties in there. So we do this as just a second line of defense to associations and common area property to make sure other, basically the village taxpayers aren't stuck maintaining the common area property. And then again, this is just kind of that overall plat of how the PUD would lay out. Any easements for cross-access, cross-parking, utilities, stormwater, any other easements come in with the individual lots. So that way we know where those are actually at when they come forward. So that's all I have. The petitioner's here as well, if you have any questions for them.
Okay, well, would the petitioner like to approach, be sworn, and you can entertain questions then? Good evening.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Okay, do you solemnly swear that the information you're about to give this the testimony you're about to give this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Would you state your name, please?
Lawrence Deb.
Okay, Lawrence.
So I thought Mr. Ritter did a nice job of kind of giving an overview. We look forward to doing it. We're going to, we have contracts on all the sites now, so we're ready to go. We're excited about it. The original plan was to have Woodman's grocery store all the way on the south side of the site, abutting the residential. And I still remember one night I got a call from your mayor who was not pleased with the concept of having a store of that size, 226,000 square foot grocery store, and all the traffic that's associated with that right behind or right adjacent to his residence. So he said he would like us to get annexed into the village, which would bring significant dollars, approximately $50 million over the next 20 years to the village, as opposed to staying in. And I was, in my mind, wise to agree with him and decide to come into the village. And the good news is the village staff has been very good too, so it's been very helpful. And with their help, we pushed everything to the north as much as possible. We brought in a much smaller grocery store than a Woodman's, but the village felt that this area was a desert for food stores, so it was very important for them to have a food store there. As we said, we have a McDonald's, the gas station, the auto dealership, which is going to bring, again, significant dollars to the village, and no students to the schools, yet the schools will benefit significantly from the tax revenue that is going to be generated here. The land itself, on the right-hand side surrounding number 5, that's wetlands there, so we're not really touching those. Those are not going to be changed at all. The rest of it will be mostly for compensatory storage. Those big ones are only gonna, the 1% of the time they'll be filled, which means during a 100-year flood. Those will fill, and they'll drain in about 24 to 48 hours. They'll actually, all that water will come in from the creek on the east side and exit north underneath 191st Street to rejoin the creek. This is the state of Illinois, working with the state of Illinois, the Corps, and my engineers came up with this system that everybody's, we don't have final approval yet, but we have tentative approval. The stoplight, we've met with the county, again, tentative approval, we're doing now the final numbers on it. And we've met with the state for the exit going out onto Harlem Avenue. Again, with the neighbors, you know, we've done these projects all over. Sometimes they like, what we've just proposed is a strip of landscaping, shade trees, bushes, and then a fence behind that so they wouldn't see what's there. And we typically would do something like that if the store or the office building in the parking was real close to it. Since we're almost 300 to 800 feet away, we might not want to put a fence there so that they have this beautiful view out looking out over the green and place the fence right at the back of the grocery store. So we're flexible. We'll leave it up to staff to work with the community and do it however they want us to do it. But otherwise, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer any and all.
Let's start with Commissioner Stoklos. Do you have any questions?
No questions.
Commissioner Gaskell?
No questions.
Commissioner Merrick?
So I'm really interested to hear what the community folks have to say mostly. But I'm also interested in tying the sidewalks, or even better, if they were actually blacktop rather than cement, into the, if this gets developed into the entertainment district and amphitheater and connecting all that up. We've talked about that before at multiple meetings, including the comprehensive plan. This is a terrible place to be on a bike or on foot. It's dangerous, and it's bad, but I don't have questions right now.
Yeah, just a comment on that. We do have a sidewalk going from the, excuse me, the west side along 191st Street down all the way along our street coming out to Harlem. And there's nothing there now to hook up to, but we are installing that so that in the future.
Yeah, and I was making a suggestion that that be blacktop and be a bike path rather than just a cement sidewalk. I know that takes
I
more
like that
maintenance,
suggestion.
but is actually better for the community.
And that's a good idea, especially along the public area. I don't know if there's space on their internal walk.
Yeah, I got
So,
that.
But on the
Yeah,
public
and that doesn't
side-
really make sense to
Yeah.
go for a run through, the grocery store or whatever either.
And he already said he liked it, so we'll take that one. 'cause
Yeah,
that's
no, we'll
actually
come
a-
along
usually a
191st Street.
And even pricing wise, they're usually the same for like a concrete sidewalk versus a multi-use path, which allows pedestrians and
Yeah.
bikes a little more.
I just know that having done flat work in the past, that cement takes less maintenance over time,
Yep.
right? And blacktop takes more. That's where.
Yep,
the
we'll
cost
defer
comes
to our village engineers here. I won't speak for him or Public Works, but I think they even like multi-use paths
Okay.
usually a little bit more. Can I say
Again,
that? I
we'll
can
work
say
with the
that.
village on anything that they request. Just one other comment, there was one of the questions I saw from one of the residents is, what will this open area, these compensatory storage ponds look like? They will not hold water, these are not gonna be wet, and they'll be all grassed with it's a special plant that lives in this type of use. So when you look out, it's gonna look all green, and most of it, even during the winter, a lot of it will stay green. No, but no trees in there or anything like that.
Commissioner Hamilton?
Just an observation, it looks as though, to me, about 50% of the site is remaining undeveloped. right?
Unfortunately, it's about, of the 77 acres, about 22 is being developed.
Yeah.
The rest of it is just left open.
Yeah, so that's a substantial set-aside, right, of property you're paying for, and you're not being able to really
Unfortunately.
get revenue-producing square footage on it, so,
Yeah. No, I agree with you there.
yeah. So that's my only comment.
And these guys pretty much covered my comments, so at this time, I'm gonna ask if you wouldn't mind stepping
Sure.
aside. We're gonna have comments from the audience. We would only ask that before you make a comment, you come up, you be sworn, and you give us your full name, and then ask your questions or make a comment. So please, who would like to come up and comment? Go right ahead, sir. That's fine.
Swearing me in again?
No, you've already been sworn.
Yeah.
You could swear him in again, because
It's a
it is
new
a
hearing.
different.
Oh, okay, we're gonna swear you in again.
Okay.
Do you solemnly swear that the truth, that the information you're about to give to this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And would you restate your name, please?
James Atten.
Okay, James, please.
Question on the one parcel where 7's going, there's a wooded area right there now. Are you taking it down?
I
Talked
believe
to you
the-
about it?
Yeah, I
In the
believe
northwest corner.
Yeah, so the proposal there is for that to become part of that comp storage where.
There is wildlife in there. Hawks. There's coyotes in there and everything else. Coyotes can be relocated, hawks cannot. So that's something you gotta look at. And these basins, what are the basins gonna do if they're not holding water?
I agree with you, that's a great question, but it's required by the state of Illinois. So what they say happens, which by the way has never happened from what I understand, is that when the water's coming up underneath Harlem, that could actually flood if there's enough water. And that water's gotta go somewhere and it can't go down the creek, so they want us to store it on our site. So
In the
it's-
basins?
Yeah,
Well,
it's
that's
called
fine.
compensatory storage, and it'll be used it's for only 100-year rains.
Right.
And so it'll stay there for 24 to 48 hours and then either soak in, but most of it will go underneath 191st Street to rejoin the creek,
Well, you're draining across 191st.
underneath it, correct?
And then what about for the fence? Can you move it in on the other side of these?
Well, I mean, you tell me, seriously, you work with staff and I'll do whatever you guys
Well,
want.
I had a meeting with the
Comments
neighbors and
and
everybody
plain-
thought it'd be nicer to have the fence further from the edges.
Well, if I lived here personally,
We
I'd
do.
like to see, I'd like to see bushes and some nice shade trees and be able to look out over this instead of looking to a fence.
Yeah.
So what I would recommend is let us do our landscaping as we talked about and place the fence, behind the grocery store, for instance. This here,
It's even, right here,
yeah,
around, so it stays,
I'll let
Leaves
you
us.
and staff come up with, because I can't make everybody happy. And-
Well, I
and what-
understand.
What you might want to do is even, and I'll vary it too, if you said, hey, let's put a fence where it's really, where you're the closest and not, it's totally up to the neighbors, whatever they want.
Not
the
to
ones we
interrupt,
talked to,
but
they wanted it moved in.
these items, like where the fence is gonna go, or the possible berm or the landscaping, are all variables right now that are still under discussion. You are certainly welcome and encouraged to get with staff, let your feelings be known, and they can work with that. And the developer has already said that, they're gonna work with whatever works best from a resident point of view as well as from a village and a business point of view. So you guys are gonna be in the mix.
And we got a
Chair,
couple
can-
different comments, so
Yeah.
you are all free to, if you have a preference, go ahead and state it.
Well, is there gonna be another meeting on all this?
It'll go to village board after this, they have the
Yeah.
final say, but the recommendation, this just recommending board, but they can recommend the condition that says, hey, here's how we want this to lay out, and then that would require the owner to do that, so if you guys come up here and say, hey, I prefer this option, that's all they need to hear, and if there's a common theme, we'll go with that one.
Well, the neighbors I've talked to already agreed, they'd like the fence moved in.
Well,
And
it
how
sounds
high
like-
is this berm that goes around the outside?
Again, that can vary. Right now, what we had planned was just a strip of landscaping with trees and then the fence. There's a park district strip in front of that. We could make a bigger berm if the park district would allow us to, we can do a 6-foot berm if that's what you want. But you lose kind of that view, in my opinion, I would probably not want that. But again,
No, I didn't.
We're looking for the view.
yeah, then I tend to agree with you.
Yeah,
Okay.
so we can get the view and then the fence, so unless anybody has an opposition to that, if anybody does, they can speak on it, and then, if not, we'll go with that option, I think.
And the lighting?
Yeah, is there gonna be,
There will be lighting on the streets, which is required by code and for safety reasons. If you'll notice that the parking lot is in front of the building, so you'll get none of the light from the parking lot. There will be security lights, though, in the back of the building.
and what about deliveries and stuff? Like,
Well, the grocery stores typically deliveries would be more in the morning. This is a much smaller store than a Woodman's though, but there will be deliveries there. And I think placing the fence where you said will probably even help
Okay.
with that.
Thank you.
And the lights are all downcast, so none of them are shined up or out towards any other lot. So they're all have to be kind of parallel with the ground. All the lights have to be shielded, so.
Yeah, you won't see the light.
Yeah, the light's required to stay kind of within the property, well, not kind of, it has to stay within the property line. So that will be, any of the light will be 300 plus feet away from any property, any residential property.
Thank you. Who else wishes to speak on this? Please. Okay, raise your hand, please. Do you solemnly swear that the information you're about to give to this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And your name, please?
Michael Chancellor.
Please.
I'm a Brookside Glen resident for 20 years. I've watched a lot of businesses be formed. Have there been any studies done as far as traffic goes? As far as the amount of stuff that's going to be happening between concerts, the new dome, all this traffic here? I'm just curious, has anyone proposed, has there been a study?
Yes,
on
we
what
have done a study, it's been submitted to the village.
You have?
I think that's in the it's tough to read the overall study, but there is a summary in it, because it's like a 300-page traffic study. It looks at all the
So
surrounding.
it's a public thing I can get access to? I mean, it's.
Yes, yeah, it's online, it's in with the packet, so that's part of the reason why it was such a large packet, is we wanted to include those traffic reports in it, so it's in there.
Okay, the second question I had is, you talked about sidewalks. Is that gonna connect, it would be nice if it connected to the subdivision. Is it gonna connect to the subdivision, and how would it? Seems very difficult.
As soon as I can get it, but some of it is based on budgeting, right? So I think this is the key piece, is that once you have this sidewalk in, then Public Works and the village can look at how do we fill in those gaps. There'll be a couple gaps left in there.
I mean, it almost looks like you'd have to walk on the south side, go to the north side, walk on the north side, come back to the south side.
Yeah, there's definitely improvements that gotta
So, I mean,
happen,
that's, and the two houses that are there next to the wetlands there, will they have sidewalks in front of their house then? I mean,
If we can get an agreement with them. It comes down to, like, along Harlem, we'd have to have an agreement with the state, and property owners, we have to get an agreement.
Yeah. And right now, those are unincorporated parcels, so we'd either have to get an agreement, purchase it. The third
I mean, for
option,
20 years,
of course,
20 years I couldn't even walk the
third
target.
option of forcibly annexing, but those are all board choices of what they budget or decide to do. But I think everybody wants to see the sidewalks connect. So it won't be
Agreed.
immediate, but.
But where
eventually
the dome's
it'll
being
be.
built, is there gonna be sidewalks in front of there too? I was never even talked, I didn't really hear you guys talk about that much.
Was there, yeah, there's sidewalks along there.
There is, okay.
Yeah.
That's all I have. Thanks.
You're welcome. Anyone else, or who's next? Please, sir.
Good evening.
Okay, right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear that the information you're about to give this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And your name, please?
Carl Camelucci. I'm a partner at the Taft Law Firm. I represent the owner of the corner property on the hard corner southwest part of the intersection of 191st Street and Harlem Avenue. Thanks for the opportunity to speak with you today. The name of the owner of the corner property is Webster Property Group. They're under contract to sell that property to the Quick Trip Corporation, which has submitted a special use application to the village for a fueling station and convenience store on that corner. And Webster does not oppose the proposed development that's before you tonight, but it does have serious concerns about access from 191st Street based upon the plat of subdivision that's been proposed as part of the materials. The reason for that is that Quick Trip, in connection with its preparation to submit the special use application for its fueling station, has had conversations with the Will County Highway Department about, potential access for the corner site from 191st Street. And the county has indicated to Quick Trip that it has concerns about granting too many access points along 191st Street, and that the county's preference would be to have a shared access from 191st Street that would benefit both the proposed developments site as well as the corner site to minimize the number of access points and mitigate the traffic that would result from having too many access points. And the current plat of subdivision doesn't contemplate that. The concern that we have, well, there's a number of them, but first, just as a mechanical procedural matter, if the plat of subdivision is approved in its current form, doesn't show a shared access, which is what the county seems to prefer, benefiting both properties, and then the developer seeks to get the plat approved by the county probably won't approve the plat because it won't show the access points that the county would like to see. And the developer may be back before the Plan Commission and the village board seeking an amendment to the plat, reflecting the access points that would be approved by the county, namely that shared access for both the corner property and the remainder of the property. A more efficient solution to that, we think, would be to just continue consideration of this for a few weeks to allow Quick Trip and the developer of the proposed development a reasonable opportunity to come up with a shared access plan from 191st Street that would be satisfactory to the county, satisfactory to the village, work from a business perspective for all of the proposed tenants, and then allow the plan to proceed through the village process. At that point, it seems to us that, although it's counterintuitive, is a more efficient process than approving it, going to the county not signing it, and then coming back for an amendment. Besides that, there are some other reasons why Webster is concerned about access, and why we believe the Plan Commission should consider a continuance to allow for a shared access plan. First of all, the staff report indicates that the village encourages collaboration between the two property owners to come up with shared access from 191st Street and also cross-access between the properties. The problem is that Webster and Quick Trip didn't find out about the proposed plans for this development until the end of November, when the materials were first posted for the originally planned workshop meeting on, I think it was November 21st. And so there's only been less than 3 weeks since Webster and Quick Trip would have had the opportunity to reach out to the developer of the proposed development and try to come up with a shared access solution that works for everybody. So we agree that's the responsibility of the property owner, but the property owner needs to have a reasonable opportunity to actually do it. It's our understanding that Quick Trip has since then contacted the developer of the proposed development, and they've had some productive discussions about potential locations for a shared access off 191st Street that would benefit both properties. It's just that there hasn't been enough time to really finalize that and memorialize it, and so we think that a continuance by the Plan Commission until maybe the second meeting in January, which I think is January, was it 16th or something like that? I may not have the date correct off the top of my head, but that would give enough time to finalize that and come back to the Plan Commission with a consensus plan for that access. We also, note that, the staff report acknowledges that cross-access is required by the zoning ordinance here. And we appreciate staff's point that until there's a site plan for Site 4, it's difficult to identify exactly where cross-access easements would be. But the cross-access easements are sort of, need to be considered as part of the access from 191st, right? If there's no shared access from 191st Street, the cross-access easements are less valuable. And so minimally, we think that the village should want to have a finalized consensus plan for the shared access off 191st Street, even if the specific locations for cross-access easements between the two parcels can't be determined until AutoNation comes in with a particular plan. And then finally, we disagree with some of the comments in the staff report regarding the development agreement. We think it's clear that the development agreement already grants a benefit to the property on which the proposed development will be built. The development agreement required Webster to grant cross-access easements over its property that would allow users of the other property to access 191st Street and Harlem Avenue. Webster agreed to do that with the understanding that it would also have access to 191st Street through what is now the proposed development. And that's the reason why it agreed to grant those easements in the first place. And now, if this plan is approved before we have an agreed plan in place for that access off 191st Street, Webster won't be getting the benefit it thought it would be getting when it agreed to grant those easements in the first place. So we think there is a benefit that's granted to the current property by the development agreement, and that it would be consistent with the development agreement for the village to grant this continuance, and again, let the parties figure out shared access. Just a couple more points for the record. I know that you received our letters. Staff already confirmed that they'll be made part of the record, but one of them you may not have had a chance to really review yet because it only came in today. The Quick Trip property, or the Quick Trip proposal, there were some comments about what would be required in terms of amending the development agreement and amending the zoning that's applicable to that corner property. Just for the record, even though it's not extremely relevant to approval of this development, the development agreement already contemplates that the proposed site plan for the Quick Trip development can be revised without an amendment to the development agreement. So we disagree that the development agreement would necessarily need to be amended in order to accommodate the Quick Trip development. Second, there was a comment to the effect that all of the previous zoning would have to be amended and redone. It's our understanding that in the zoning district, a use of the type proposed by Quick Trip is a special use, and so that's the only type of approval that would be required. It's the same type of approval that the developer for the Brookside development is seeking, and it's the same type of approval that the gas station and car wash that's proposed for, I guess it's Lot 1 in the proposed development will be seeking after this agenda item. So it doesn't require the kind of heavy lift that, that the staff report suggests. It just requires the parties to work together and come up with an agreed plan. So the bottom line is access to 191st Street is obviously important to both of these developments. It's in the village's interest, the proposed developer's interest, certainly Webster and Quick Trip's interest, and the county's interest to have an agreed plan so that we can most efficiently advance both of these developments and improve the property for the good of the community. So I appreciate the opportunity. If you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, thank you very much.
Bellato, I don't know if you want to address any of that, or I can address a few comments.
Actually, I was going to defer to you.
Okay. First, I will note, like you said, cross-access is required on this. So that's what we've been saying all along is cross-access, just like with when their development came in 2016, that's why they were required to have the cross-access easements, because we require cross-access. Their development came in as a full proposal. With this one, it's just the PUD setting up the lot. So typically, you're not going to have cross-access on that because we don't know where it's going to go, just like we don't have utility easements, we don't have access easements, I don't have stormwater easements or anything like that on those properties, because we don't know what they are, and we don't know how they're going to develop. So they, by our code, are still required to have cross-access. From what I know from the petitioner, he has said he is open to making that cross-access work, to moving it as close to their property as they can so they can easily access it. And when that development comes in is when we would do the cross-access easement. So if the county requires that to get done before they approve the overall plat, that can always be a supplementary plat for a cross-access easement, and that actually wouldn't even come before you guys. So the whole plat doesn't need to go back through the process, just a plat of easement that goes to the village board, the public cross-access easement. So I guess that's the first point I would say. He made reference that there was a submittal from Quick Trip. We have no completed submittal from Quick Trip. Quick Trip submitted plans that had improvements on Larry's properties representing here that surrounds this property. They also had improvements on the Frankfurt Square Park District property, and they didn't have signatures from either of those applicants that would have been asking for zoning approvals and development approvals on them. So we've never received a complete submittal with all the property owners' signatures on it. So lastly, the development agreement, I would say the entire agreement references even the site plans. You see on this, the landscaping plans, The entire agreement is based upon it being the shopping center and not a gas station. So even, I would assume the access points would change if they change the overall site here. And then the property itself, unless they were gonna move the entire building up to the property, they would need variations on top of the special use. Since it is still part of the urban design overlay district, unless they joined this PUD, which would require a variation in itself. So there's, from everything that they've said for a gas station, it's not only a special use, there would be probably a long list of variations as well required for it. So, or it would need to be, essentially be a PUD in itself. But it doesn't meet the requirements because you have to be a minimum size to be a PUD. So one way or another, for the gas station that we've seen, they would need variations from it. And last, I would just say, again, there is cross-access here. So the petitioner has said they'll work on that cross-access with them. And they are working with the county to figure out where is that best located. And a lot of times, cross-access between two properties, they like when the property line goes down the middle of it, right? Because each owns a half of it, and maybe that ends disputes later. From a property maintenance standpoint, I hate this because I have to be in code enforcement because you get potholes down the middle of it. So also here, the county is going to want it as far away from that intersection as possible. So I'm going to kind of assume that because that's, with all the traffic movements out there, they usually want that. So the petitioner has said they're open to it. They'll find the cross-access point, but it's going to come in when AutoNation actually has a plan. That's when they bring the cross-access, not at this point with PUD plat.
If I may, just a couple comments.
Yes.
Just to correct some of the statements that were made by the lawyer. The owner, the current owner of it, has had the plans for over 6 months. So they had plenty of time, and I have had multiple conversations with them, and they've been very good conversations. And where we stand today with them is that what we tentatively agreed is if you see that right in, right out, that's on their property now, we do pretty much with what Mr. Ritter said, is that we'd slide it over so that half of it, the outbound would be on their property, the inbound would be on our property, so that they could use that. I will point out, though, that the ordinance that was agreed to by the petition, or by the owner of that property, said that and it states specifically, they're only entitled to one right in, right out. It doesn't say two. So, I mean, I'll work with them in the cross easements. I'm not asking for any variations or anything like that. I'll work with them, but just so you know that we have had talks with them already of sliding that over, because we have one shown just to the left of that, it doesn't show on this plan, but that we would both be able to use that right in, right out, and we're not opposed to that at all. I would be, though, opposed to delaying this any longer. We'll work with them, and we'll abide by whatever codes the city has, the village has regarding, cross easements, but I would like to proceed as quickly as possible, if that's acceptable.
Thank you again. Is there anyone else who wishes to address this issue? Good evening. Can we swear you in, please, and get your name?
Pamela Maloney.
Pamela, do you solemnly swear that the information you're about to give this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please.
I know Mr. Ritter said some of the residents, our information would be put into record. I just wanted to ask a few questions and just maybe bring a few things up. I know you said the basins will be maintained, it's going to be grass.
Planting, it's not called grass, it's a specific planting that's used in compensatory storage.
Okay, and it will be maintained, though you'll.
It's really self-maintained.
Okay,
It's not like
perfect.
you have to cut it or anything.
Right, okay.
But it will be maintained. I mean, people will throw garbage in there and whatnot.
Right.
So it will be maintained.
Okay.
By an association that's owned by the property owner.
Right, and I think you mentioned that, right? Have we discussed safety at all with the businesses that are coming in? So we're talking about a McDonald's. McDonald's hours are usually 5 a.m. till, 11 or 12? What's Tinley right now? Are they 24 hours?
I think one of them is.
One of them is.
Another.
Is this going to be a 24 hours McDonald's? We've got small children, our residents. I mean, we said there's going to be safety lights. I mean, you're going to have your security lights, but, we have lights going all the time. Are we going to be able to sleep? You know, we have a business behind us currently, and they have their security lights that they've adjusted, you know, for us. But is this a 24 hours? We've got a coffee shop you're talking about coming in. Is that another Starbucks that we've already have in Target? We've got another car place. We've got CarMax. And now we're talking about another Lenny's gas station. How many Lenny's do we have? And now this is the first time I've heard of Quick Trip. So that's another gas station. So we have such easy access to I-80. I mean, we need to talk about safety. You know, what kind of safety measures are we putting in place for us? Because anything can happen at any of those places at any time, and they're on I-80 and they're gone. I mean, I don't want to bring up Lane Bryant, but we still have not found any information on that. When you talk about traffic studies, was it done on the side streets by us? Or was it just 191st in Harlem?
It was just my site and the traffic generated by my site.
So we're gonna have a lot of people coming off of Harlem onto 194th through Westfield, through Rosefield, and going, they're gonna try to find a back road to get in there, which is more traffic for us. Do we have stop signs we're gonna be putting in? We've got Ridgefield and Westfield, we've got Rosefield and Westfield that have no stop signs. Are we putting them in? We've got small children, we are in a cul-de-sac, I'd like to maybe see a dead end sign put up, because when there's a night, there's a concert, everybody whips through there. Everybody's whipping through there, and they're trying to get through, because now you're not parked, they're not gonna park and wait at Target's parking lot, they're going into your parking lots now. And they're gonna sit and wait when a concert's going on. The buses, the limos,
We wouldn't allow that first off.
Target. Yeah, it goes on at Target.
I don't know how they operate there, but we.
Absolutely, it's just something to look into and think about. Because you're gonna have lots of riffraff coming in there, and they're drunk, and there's, you know.
That's probably true.
Yes. So I just like to look into hours of the stuff that's coming in. You talked about Frankfurt Square Park District. Have we actually talked to them about anything? Or is this just?
No, I've not
We're
talked to
gonna-
them. I'm waiting to hear.
You weren't rating on this, okay. That was just my main concerns I just wanted to bring up. I know you brought up the wildlife, if we could look into that. We're right there by that McDonald's, it just kind of concerns me. We don't want to lose our eagles, because with the buildings coming in, we know we're going to have a lot of rodents, which is normal, right? But our our hawks do take care of it. I love our hawks, so that's all, thank you.
Thank you.
And I will note, we'll connect any of the new businesses with our police department, so they have the.
I'm sorry.
We will connect any of the new businesses, because a lot of it haven't been finalized, right? So as those new businesses come in, we usually we do connect them with our police department. They have a new system called Fusus as well, so like all of their exterior cameras can be tied in to our system, so they can see what's happening out there. I know Gas and Wash is already on board to kind of have their locations hooked up to it. And then a lot of the other businesses have all been on board with it as well, because it not only helps the community, it helps those businesses to tie in those exterior cameras to the Fusus system.
say one thing, I mean, we've come back to you again and again, and really this has been the best. So, I mean, we are happy with what you're proposing.
And we'll work with you. We were just mentioning, if you know where the nest is, what trees, we might be able to work around it to leave, you know, some of those trees up.
And Dan, one other thing, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but as these other places come, they gotta also come to public meetings? Or
They
may, only if they have
may
exceptions?
to at least
or-
do a site plan, right? So somebody's coming before you guys to
Yeah.
at least do the site plan. Most of them will probably need some variation or something.
And there'll be
So,
opportunities
and
for
then-
public comment
Yep.
on the individual ones
Yep.
when those happen, yeah.
Yep, there'll definitely be a public meeting.
Anyone else wish to speak on this matter? Okay, seeing no one, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So move.
Second.
Okay, moved by trustee Hamilton, seconded by trustee. Moved by Commissioner Hamilton, seconded by Commissioner Stokos. All those in favor, close the meeting, say aye.
Read the motion.
All opposed? Okay, Dan, can we do the standards then?
Yeah, I'm not gonna read each one, but I'll kind of do the summary of what the standards are and how they meet them. The standards for rezoning are really, it's called the LaSalle standards, so similar to the other one, it's to consider the existing uses and nearby zoning of the property. This is, B3 is consistent with the properties to the north and the east of it, and it's really an extension of Brookside Marketplace. The second one's the extent of what property values would be diminished by the zoning. There's no expectation that this would lower any property values with the large amount of development away from the homes and substantial landscape buffers. And if there was any destruction of property values, that would be considered with it. The relative gain to the public as compared to the hardship of not having it rezoned. So B3 is really the highest and best use that allows this to be developed and be able to generate revenue and develop that property. The suitability of the property for the zoned use, again, this has sufficient roadways access around it, utilities, nearby to large kind of commercial corridor roadways. And the interchange, the length of time that the property's been vacant, it's been vacant for a very long time due to the number of inundations on the property that we talked about earlier. The public need for the proposed use, again, with the additional retail, dining, entertainment opportunities, the overall economic development this would bring, and the overall level of both property and sales taxes to help offset like school taxes as well as village taxes and any other taxing districts that this would generate for. And then the thoroughness for the planned use. This has obviously been zoned residential since its annexation, but for the majority of time, this has been considered for a commercial use. So that is the rezoning standards. The special use for the PUD, this is just basically saying that it won't hinder the overall area in terms of the maintenance, public health, safety, morals, that it won't diminish property values. It doesn't impede the normal orderly development of the surrounding neighboring properties, that there's sufficient utilities, road access, that there's been measures and planning taken in place for ingress and egress to the property. All other village codes will be met, and then that this does provide, again, an economic development to the overall community. Site plan approval, again, we don't do specific standards. There is no architectural approval here because there's no buildings proposed with this. It's just basically the roadway and lot layouts. So there's the standards for site plan, and then the standards for a PUD. And so that's all I have for the standards.
All right, we have a motion on the screens for a rezone. Would anyone like to make that motion for me, please?
I'll make a motion
Okay.
to recommend the village board grant the petitioner GSP Development, Inc. a map amendment rezoning of the approximately 79.1 acre property generally located on south side of 191st Street and west side of Harlem Avenue, excluding the hard corner parcel that is commonly addressed as 7201 191st Street, from the existing R1 and R2 single-family residential and unincorporated Will County AG agricultural zoning district to the B3 general business and commercial zoning district upon annexation of all parcels, and adopt the finding of facts as proposed in the December 5, 2024 staff report.
Do I hear a second for the motion?
Second.
Okay. The motion was made by Commissioner Merrick, seconded by Commissioner Gaskell. May we have a roll call on this, please?
Commissioner Gaskell,
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton,
Yes.
Commissioner Merrick,
Yes.
Commissioner Stakos,
Yes.
Acting Chair Sepisi.
Yes. Okay, so that motion has carried. Now we have a motion for the special use portion. Who wants to make that motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion
Please.
to recommend that the village board grant the petitioner, GSP Development, Inc., a special use to establish the new Brookside Creek Retail Center Plan Unit Development in accordance with all plans and documents submitted and listed herein, and adopt the findings of fact as proposed in the December 5, 2024 staff report, subject to the conditions included in the staff report.
Do we have a second on this motion?
I second it.
Okay. Motion made by Commissioner Hamilton, second by Commissioner Stoklos. Lori, once again, please.
Commissioner Gaskell?
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton?
Yes?
Commissioner Merrick?
Yes.
Commissioner Stoklos?
Yes.
Acting Chair Sepisi?
Yes. Motion has carried unanimously. Okay, this motion will be about the plat. Who would like to make this motion?
I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval of the final plat for Brookside Creek Retail Center subdivision upon annexation of all property in accordance with the final plat submitted and dated October 25th, 2024, subject to the final review and approval by the village engineer and attorney.
Okay, that's the motion. Do we have a second on that?
Second.
Okay, the motion was made by Commissioner Stoklos, seconded by Commissioner Gaskell. Lori?
Commissioner Gaskell?
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton?
Yes?
Commissioner Merrick?
Yes.
Commissioner Stoklos?
Yes.
Acting Chair Sepisi?
Yes. Motion has carried unanimously. And we have a motion on the screen for a site plan.
I'll make a motion to grant the petitioner, GSP Development, Inc., site plan approval for the development of a 7-lot retail and commercial development that includes outlots for an internal private road and centralized detention stormwater areas, approximately 79.1 acre property generally located on the south side of 191st Street and west side of Harlem Avenue, excluding the hard corner parcel that is commonly addressed as 7201 191st Street, in accordance with the plan submitted and adopt findings of fact as proposed in the December 5, 2020 staff report, subject to the following conditions listed in the staff report, or subject to the conditions listed in the staff report.
And do we have a second for this motion?
I'll second it.
Okay. This motion was made by Commissioner Mackey, seconded by Commissioner Hamilton. Lori?
Commissioner Gaskell?
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton?
Yes?
Commissioner Merrick?
Yes.
Commissioner Stoklos?
Yes.
Acting Chair Sepisi?
Yes. Motion has carried unanimously. These motions are all carried unanimously. They will be discussed at the village board meeting on December 17th of this year, 2024. Anyone who wishes to attend is, of course, invited to. You can get with staff for details on that. And thank you very much.
And this is just a recommending body, so the village board on December 17th is make the final decision.
Nothing binding. Okay, moving right along.
I was advised by staff to also recuse myself for item 6 because it is tied to item 5, which I do have a direct involvement with.
So Chairman Gray's gonna sit this one out too, but let's go ahead with this. This is item number 6, a public hearing about gas and wash at 7455 191st Street. This is a request for a special use for a substantial deviation to a planned unit development, site plan, and architecture. Consider recommending that the village board grant Leonard Montgomery on behalf of Lenny's Gas and Wash Tinley Park LLC a special use for a substantial deviation of a planned unit development to develop an automobile service station and attached automobile car wash for 3.3 acres of property located at 7455 West 191st Street within the B3 General Business and Commercial Zoning District. Site plan and architectural approval will also be considered. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
Motion.
Motion made by Commissioner Gaskell. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second made by Commissioner Stoklos. All those in favor signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay, then we shall continue. Let's do a staff report.
All right. We're pretty familiar with the sites that we were just talking about now. So this is actually in Lot 1 of the Brookside Creek Retail Center, just south of 191st, west of Harlem. This will be conditional based on the PUD being approved. I know it seems a little funky to say we're deviating the PUD before it's adopted, but considering for some of the exceptions they're asking for, things like that, we felt it was much more open and clear if we did it separately in its own separate item. So that's what we're here for. Based on the condition, if everything is approved at Village Board, this will be a B3 zone property. It will be surrounded by other commercial properties, the grocer to the south, the McDonald's to the west, and other commercial uses to the east. So overall, this is just going to be for the gas station car wash. So the request is for a gas station with an attached car wash, and we're going to be looking at site plan and architecture for your approval. So overall, I'm just going to kind of run through the different elements of the site plan, and then I'm going to run through the different elements of the site plan just to get you understanding what this is going to look like. The roadways to the east and the west is shown on the map. Those are going to be part of the PUD's overall incoming access points off 191st. And then, so the car wash will be on the west side with the canopy and pumps closer to 191st. On the east side will be the car wash. And then there will be 2 drive-throughs for 2 different eating establishments. Those have not been decided at this point. If you see anything in the presentation that has brand names, those are just stock photos that they've had from other projects. So, so yeah, let's get into it. So access first. Like we said in the previous public hearing, there'll be a new light highlighted by the red star up at 191st. To provide the main access, you'll come south and then come in on the southern portion. There are 3 different access points, 1 off that western road, 2 off the southern road, and there will be a right-in only off the northeast corner off of 171st. The access for the 2 drive-throughs will be similar to, if everybody remembers, the LaGrange gas station, gas and wash, where you kind of come in, you'll have to do a bit of a U-turn to get into the line there. And same thing, you kind of go over. That's kind of like the one on Harlem, where you come over, come in, and do the U-turn and come the other way. So those are the main access points for the site. And then the access to the car wash is completely internal, an internal circle on the east side of the property. Pedestrian access, we had spoken previously, there will be sidewalk or possibly a multi-use path on 191st. They are proposing sidewalks and walkways to connect to it from the front of this all the way up. And then through the back to that back parking lot that's behind the convenience store. Queues. So they have provided the following queues on the site for both their drive-throughs, which I was talking about earlier. You're getting 10 stacking spaces for one, 13 for the other. Gas and Washes submitted their own traffic study and report separate from the PUD that also shows that this would be an adequate amount of stacking spaces for their users. It's very similar, again, to what they've already done that they find is appropriate for these types of uses. And then there's 22 for the car wash. There's actually a little more than that. There's some empty spaces there they put in, but that's what they were showing on their plan. And parking. So this is the first exception. The parking and drive aisles are the first exception to the PUD. Per code, and we put a chart in the staff report, and I've put it up there, but per code, all you really need to know is there should be a total of 70 spaces. They are providing 53. Again, as we've talked before in a bunch of different projects over this past year, the parking standards are interesting to say the least. It requires just a lot of parking for each stall. So again, this is very similar to what they did on their most previous 2 other gas stations here to provide parking on site. And then secondly, they're reducing, we do have a minimum drive aisle width of 26 feet. They're reducing it down to 24. Both fire and Public Works and all staff they've provided turntables showing that drive aisle is completely adequate for this type of use and where it's going to be. Moving on to landscaping, I put the landscaping up on this exhibit here. As we talked about in the previous, each lot is coming in with their own landscaping. So Gas and Wash has gone ahead, and anything that isn't pavement for a car is going to be landscaped. There will be no shortage of plantings around the site. It is still a little deficient from our code, but they overall feel that, and staff as well feels there is as much as you can put on this site as possible. There's really no space that's gone unused. Moving on to architecture. Also, they're going to be doing their 100% brick, or masonry, I should say. There's a stone ledge on the bottom portion of the building that wraps all the way around. That is for both the convenience store, it's for the car wash, and actually it's not pictured here, but the refuse container will also be this red brick. This is pretty tied into their branding, pretty similar to the other one that's just about to open up on LaGrange Road. Signage, this is where a majority of the sections are coming in. Again, overall, it is similar to what we approved on LaGrange Road. We have, I'm not going to go into detail about every single one. They're in your packet. Overall, there's just a couple things for exceptions that we were not going to allow. For instance, we have a monument sign height of 10 feet maximum. One of them is 10 feet. The other one was a little over 11 feet. So we're asking them to just bring that down to 10 feet, just so then they're both consistent. The other one is we don't in our code allow branding on directional signage. So their directional signage was showing some branding, not only on that, but on like the height bar for the drive-through. So we're just requesting that they just remove that. Otherwise, all the other signage, we are okay with permitting. There's small things like on the main building, we only allow one wall sign. They're asking for two. Typically, there is going to be 3 tenants in there. It's going to be a convenience store and 2 different restaurants. But in our code, it states each of those has to have its own door to get its own sign. So they are asking for exception within the PUD for that. On top of that, I didn't put it up here, the skinny side of the car wash, they're asking for just an extra, I think, like 15 square feet of signage. So it's all pretty minimal exceptions. Very standard to what we've seen with the other ones. They just have a lot of signage because they have a lot going on site. So to be able to direct everybody around is going to be important.
And with those 2 changes, it'll be the exact same as the LaGrange and 183rd Street one, same exceptions. So if they make those 2 changes, it's what we already did on the other couple sites.
Yep. Yep, so that is one thing we can discuss. I know this was supposed to go last week, so we're kind of doing a public hearing here, but definitely be open to talk to them about their signage. And that is a quick overview of what they are planning.
Okay, is there anyone here representing the car wash or gas station that would like to speak before us now? Please, sir. Can you raise your hand for me, please?
Yes, thank you very much.
Do you solemnly swear to the testimony you're about to provide to this chair is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
And your name, sir?
My name is Lyman Tiemann. I'm the attorney for Gas and Wash for Len McHenry.
Okay.
And I'm accompanied this evening by our architect and by our civil engineer. And we really have nothing at the moment to add to the presentation that was made by staff, but we are more than pleased to answer any questions that you have.
Well, let's go ahead with that.
Thank you.
Trustee Hamilton, we'll start with you.
The second restaurant, where would that be? Would it be in the C-store footprint?
Yes.
Okay. I think that answered it.
Sir,
Yeah,
may I swear you in, please? Do you solemnly swear that this testimony you're about to give to this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. My
And
name
your
is
please?
Christian Kolashevsky. I'm an architect from WT Group.
Kolashevsky.
And the second tenant Do you have our PowerPoint with the floor plan?
Yeah, we can bring it up.
Yeah, we'll pull it up.
Commissioner Hamilton, would you like to repeat your question?
The question was, what's the location of the second restaurant?
Yeah. As you enter the front door, you look directly to the left, and that you'll see is the coffee offering, donut offering. And then if you look just directly to the back, in that same corner, would be the second tenant. And so their drive-through is on the back of the building, where the drive-through is. Right where right there, the drive-through window at the bottom view there, that section is where the second food offering is.
So is it the U-shaped drive-through that's going to be there for the coffee entity, and the drive-through that's sort of S-curved going around the back will be the food entity?
Correct, yes. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Any more questions?
Clear?
You good?
Thank you. No further
Okay.
questions.
Trustee Merrick, what's your question?
I have no.
Okay. Commissioner Merrick, oh, man. That's good, they're going to kill me.
They'll just strike it on the record every place.
Commissioner Gaskell, what about you?
Nothing out of me today.
Commissioner Stockless, anything?
I'm good.
Okay, how about the public? Does anyone have any other questions or comments? Seeing none, let's go ahead and have a motion to close the hearing.
I'll make that motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Stockless, seconded by Commissioner Gaskell. All those in favor of closing the hearing, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, I guess we can do standards, Jason.
Sure, and I'll do a quick summary of all the standards as well, since it's a special use to deviate from the PUD. Again, the establishment, it's going to be in a commercial area. It's not going to change the character. There are adequate utilities, access roads, as this is all being developed as a master plan. It will not be injurious to, or the enjoyment of property immediate vicinity. Its immediate vicinity will also be all these new stores. With that being said, too, it's going to be quite a bit of ways from all the residential, so it kind of fits into this area. Adequate measures have been taken to provide ingress and egress with all the access points for pedestrians, vehicles, and those making those connections. And it will contribute directly to the economic development in the community as it is a brand-new business on a open lot.
Okay.
And the site plan standards are up there, and architecture standards as well.
Okay, we need a motion for the special use. Anybody want to make a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion.
You can't see it, I understand,
You're ready.
Yeah, okay, great. I'd like to make a motion to recommend the village board grant special use permit for a substantial deviation to the petitioner, Leonard McHenry of Gas and Wash at 7455 191st Street in the B3 PD General Business and Commercial Brookside Creek Retail Center PUD zoning district in accordance with the plan submitted and adopt the findings of fact as proposed in the December 5, 2024 staff report, subject to the conditions included in the staff report.
Okay, the motion was made by Commissioner Hamilton. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second made by Commissioner Gaskell. Lori, could we have a roll call?
Commissioner Gaskell?
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton?
Yes.
Commissioner Merrick?
Yes.
Commissioner Stockless?
Yes.
Acting Chair Stefasi?
Yes. So the motion is carried unanimously. Let's move on to the site plan, architectural plan motion.
I'd like to make a motion to grant the site plan architectural approval to the petitioner Leonard McHenry of Gas and Wash for the development of a gas station with a convenience store, 2 interior drive-throughs, and a car wash at 7455 191st Street in the proposed Brookside Creek Retail Center PUD, in accordance with the plans submitted and adopt the findings of facts proposed on December 5th, 2024 staff report, subject to the following conditions. Approval is subject to review and approval of the final engineering plans by the village engineer. The landscape plan shall be reviewed and approved by staff with with the final site permit approval to ensure specific layout and species are coordinated with the overall master development. The final photometric plan and lighting details shall be reviewed and approved by staff with final site permit approval to ensure specific layout and lighting specs are coordinated with overall master development.
And do we have a second on that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, the motion was made by Commissioner Stockless, seconded by Commissioner Merrick. Lori?
Commissioner Gaskell?
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton?
Yes.
Commissioner Merrick?
Yes.
Commissioner Stokos?
Yes.
Acting Chair Stephenson?
Yes. So it has approved, the motion was approved unanimously. Now, these motions are all being approved unanimously. This will be brought before the village board for discussion on the 17th of December. Anyone who wishes to, is interested in, can connect with staff and they can give you the details on what has to be done. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Staff, do you have anything to present for the good of the order?
I don't. We've had a long enough meeting here.
Sure.
Harmony Square Plaza's flying along though, so.
Looks good.
And then the holiday market's coming up this weekend, and the comprehensive plan.
We have a booth.
Come
so-
see Jason and Lakota advertise the comprehensive plan and bring people to bring free feedback, so.
There are prizes.
Nice prizes, right?
Excellent.
You get like a free pin.
We'll move on to receiving comments from the public. Seeing no additional, we'll move on to adjourning the meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, I heard a motion to close the meeting by Steve Stepasy and seconded by Commissioner Gaskell. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the motion is carried. The meeting is adjourned at 9:49 PM.